Right, afternoon everybody, welcome to this afternoon's strategic planning. We'll just go down the screen and make sure that everybody's supposed to be here that's supposed to be. Councillor Pinnock, I can see you, Councillor Pattison, Councillor Scott, Councillor Firth, Councillor Bellamy, somebody at left hand bottom, oh, Councillor Sokol and me, so we're all here. Right, minutes of the previous meeting, can we pass those as a true record? Can I have a mover? Mohan, and a seconder. Thanks, Andrew. Oh, just by the way, if you can put your phones on silent or switch them off. Right, interests and lobbying. I'll start off with Councillor Pinnock.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just the first three items, whilst carrying out a site visit on Monday, I spoke to the husband of the applicant. This wasn't sought, and I gave him no indication of how I was likely to vote on this. So, but I need to record that I've had a conversation with a relative of the applicant on site. I have spoken to Richard Dunn about this.
Yeah. All right.
You should have gone in disguise.
Councillor Pattison.
None, Chair.
No. Councillor Scott.
None, Chair.
Councillor Sokol.
None, Chair.
Councillor Bellamy.
None, Chair.
Councillor Firth.
None, Chair.
And I've none also. Right, item 4. This is a meeting done in public and webcast and recorded. Item 5, questions. I gather we've got a question today.
Yes, we have, Chair.
Right.
It's a question that's actually been sent in by Councillor Bellamy. And the question is, I'll read the question, then I'll hand over to Sandra Haig, who's the legal officer, who will respond. And the question says that agenda item 14 has been brought to the committee as the applicant is a member of staff who works for the Investment and Regeneration Service, and that this is in accordance with part 3.7 of the Constitution. Would this mean that all officers and senior officers of the council require to have their planning applications heard by the planning committee? So if Sandra could respond.
Yeah. In answer to the question, no, it doesn't mean that all officers and senior officers of the council have to have their planning applications heard by committee. In this case, it's because the applicant works in investment and regeneration, and the Constitution requires that all applications submitted by or on behalf of any member of staff in their personal capacity who works for the Investment and Regeneration Service and any member of their family need to come to committee, and also all applications submitted by or on behalf of the Chief Executive, any members of the Directors Group or Management Board, or any head of service or senior manager that again is in their personal capacity, or any member of their family. Yeah. Sorry, could you hear that? I've got a message. Was that clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Item 6, deputations and petitions.
None received,
None. Right, move on to planning applications. First 3 that we've got are all for the same location, which is Devour at Luke Lane, Thongsbridge, Home Firth. So Neil's going to go through and do all 3 presentations in one, but obviously we will be doing each vote for each item, so we'll have 3 votes to do at the end. So it's over to Neil.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share the screen. Right, okay. Can members see the screen? It says items 8 to 10, pages 17 to 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right, so as Council has mentioned, there's 3 applications on the site. I'm going to go through them all together. So first off, I just wanted to provide a bit of an overview of the site. My name is Neil Bearcroft. I've acted as case officer on the applications. And there's the 3 applications on committee. All 3 applications have been asked to be heard by Councillor Patrick for the same reasons as set out in the committee report. So this is the site outlined in red, and it forms a parcel of land to the south of the River Home, which is part of the wider site of 2 buildings. The northern building is currently used as a restaurant, with the southern building currently empty. A car park to serve the development is located to the west. The site is accessed on a bend of Luke Lane, which leads through into the site and to the rear where a car park is. There's a footpath that runs adjacent the southern building. This is an aerial photograph of the site. The area is outlined in red on the screen. This is the point of access here. This is the building that's a restaurant. The car park area here is here. And then this is the closest residential property, known as Royd Mill, that's opposite the entrance. The River Home runs along the northern side of the site, and there's an area of woodland to the north, also to the south. So this is a picture of the entrance of the site, the gates, the main restaurant building here. I'm pointing out with the pointer. That's Royd Mill, which is an apartment block of a number of residential properties. And this is a plan that shows the 3 applications and where they are in terms of the overall site. So the first application on the agenda is outlined in orange, which is here, and that's for the erection of a greenhouse pergola and outside seating area, along with the retention of some storage cabins. The second application is in green, which is an extension to the property or to the building from the east to a substation, and the final application is in purple, and it also includes the green and orange areas, and that's a variation of conditions application which seeks to vary some of the plans and also the hours of use. I draw members' attention to the update, which sets out that additional comments have been received on the 3 applications. 4 comments in support for the first 2 applications, 5 in support for the last one, along with 1 objection to the last one. So the first application is for the temporary storage containers, the greenhouse and the pergola. And as I've just shown, it's at this area to the east of the main building. The application is submitted partly retrospectively as some work has commenced. These are some photographs of the site, which are fairly recent, shows work had started. This is where it would go. This is the entrance to the restaurant and the access that comes through into the car park. And then those are the 2 storage containers that are already on site. These are the plans of the building. There's a greenhouse here that will be of a metal construction, not overly large, and then there'll be a pergola which will be attached to it, which will be of timber construction. The application for the extension, if I just move on to that one now, it would be between this part of the building on the eastern end and the electricity substation. I just see a couple more photographs. This is looking from within the site. The river is here on the right hand side. That's the main building, and then this is a view from the other side looking towards the substation. These are the plans of the extension. So along Luke Lane, it would fill in between the 2 buildings, relatively blank elevation with 1 door, and then on the riverside elevation there'll be some windows and a glazed area. The extension will provide a garden room, which is additional dining space or function space for the restaurant, with some ancillary accommodation associated with the back of house operations. In total, it would provide 149 square metres of additional space. So in terms of these 2 applications, members have a full and detailed report in front of them, but the main issues relate to the green bat and residential amenity. It is noted that the application for the extension, the one that's on the right, has been previously approved, but this is a slightly different design with a slightly different set of uses, but the overall scale has been previously approved. With respect to the green belt, it's considered the two developments would form an extension to the existing restaurant at the site, and the information that has been submitted sets out the scale of additions already approved at the site, taking account of additions to the original building along with these two extensions and also some other minor changes to the approved plans. The information sets out the increase would be 40% of the original size of the original building, and such a scale of additions is considered to be acceptable. With regard to design, the structures are considered to be relatively small scale and would appear subservient in relation to the main building. Turning to residential amenity, the greenhouse and pergola would facilitate outside dining associated with the main restaurant, and the extension will provide additional ancillary accommodation for back of house operations. With regard to the greenhouse and pergola, these will be located over 50 metres from the closest residential properties, and a noise report has also been submitted which sets out that the impact on any properties would be acceptable. The noise report sets out that noise levels from the outside area would most likely be inaudible at adjacent residential properties due to background noise levels. This space would also be operated between 9 AM and 10:30 AM, and the noise report would be conditioned the requirements of that. With regard to the eastern extension, there are no windows proposed in the Luke Lane elevation, and any noise that may be generated would be contained within the building. The entrance door on Luke Lane would be for staff only, and it's not considered there'll be a significant impact from the operation of this part of the extension. With respect to other matters, the proposal is not considered to have a detrimental impact on highway safety, flood risk, or ecology, and it is noted that the application would support the diversification of an existing business that employs a number of local people, and the outside seating area would also help with the site's response to the coronavirus pandemic by providing additional outside space which the site doesn't currently benefit from. These applications are therefore recommended for approval. So I'll just move on to the application to vary the conditions. I just set out the amendments and the hours that they're proposing to change. So this is the site plan, and in summary, the proposed changes are the layout of the car park has been amended. It's now longer but narrower than previously approved, and the nature walk adjacent to the car park has also been extended and enlarged. There's some provision of an entrance gate, fencing, an enlargement to a storage building, reduction in roof lights on some of the elevations, and an extract flue that has also been fitted. I'll just run through a few photographs. So this is the car park that's wider than what was previously approved. This is the nature walk. This was taken in winter, but I believe it's sort of well planted up and would look quite different now. This is looking at the car park in the turning area. The area there, you can just see the storage containers, and that's the area of the outside seating. That's the entrance to the building. This is the store that's associated with the building. That's slightly larger than what was originally approved. This is the entrance to the building. And then this is on the Riverside location, which shows the flue that's also been installed now at the site. Turning to the hours of use, the applicant proposes to add an additional 30 minutes in the morning to start at 9 AM and 1 hour in the evening on Sunday to Thursdays until 11:30 PM and 1.5 hours on Friday and Saturdays until midnight, with later openings on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve until 1:30 in the morning. Members have a full and detailed report in front of them, and the key issues of this scheme are the impact on the green belt and residential and amenity. Firstly, with regard to the changes to the approved plans, the majority of these are relatively minor, and whilst elements like the car park are longer, this is balanced by the reduction in the depth and increase in the nature walk. The larger storage building is considered to be an acceptable side and would be subservient to the main restaurant, and these elements are considered to have acceptable impact on residential amenity, ecology, and all other considerations. Turning to the extension in the hours of use, the applicant has set out the additional hours are required as visitors to the premises often stay longer over a prolonged period, and the additional hour would allow them to have a full experience without having to be asked to leave. Furthermore, it would support a business which employs local people, and the applicant has set out that they are not aware of any noise-related issues from the current operation. A noise management plan has been provided, which has been assessed by environmental health and planning officers. The closest noise sensitive properties are at Royd Mill, which is at its closest point 18.5 metres from the site. However, the entrance to the site is on the western side, which is 53 metres away. Whilst it's acknowledged that the extension of hours will lead to some additional car movements later into the evening, these are not considered to be significantly detrimental, given that they would adjoin an existing traffic road on Luke Lane. Therefore, planning and environmental health officers have no objection to the additional hours. It is, however, noted that other activities associated with the wider operation of the site, such as cashing up, cleaning, food preparation and general maintenance, would take place outside of these hours of operation. And this is an issue that's been raised by objections received. These other activities are considered to have a minimal impact on residential amenity, as they would mainly relate to activities within the building, which are mitigated by the fabric of the building itself. However, to provide clarity and additional level of protection for adjacent properties, it's considered appropriate to condition these hours of operation to not occur before 7 AM in the morning and no later than 1 hour past the extended hours of use for customers. A restriction in relation to deliveries and the disposal of bottles is also proposed. Finally, in addition to those changes, the applicant has also sought to address a number of elements which were conditioned on the previous permission but were not formally discharged fully. These relate to contaminated land, external lighting, noise from external plant and air conditioning. Details have been submitted and assessed and considered to be acceptable, in both in terms of residential amenity and local ecology, and the detail is set out in the committee report. The application is therefore recommended for approval, along with the 2 other applications which are also recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil. Just before we go on to other speakers, Mohan, you've indicated to speak. Is it anything that we need to know now? Or?
Yeah, no. Chair, thank you very much. I just need a clarification. At the beginning of the report by Officer Neil Bearcroft, he says the item 8 to 10 on here, but it actually should be 7, 8, 9, not 8 to 10 on this one. Yeah.
Right.
He said
it is 7, 8 and 9.
Yeah, it should be 7, 8, 9, not 8 to 10. Yeah.
Right. Right. Thanks for that,
I just
Mohan.
pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
Okay,
Speakers.
yes, we have some speakers, Chair. Just before I bring them in, just to confirm that we have approached all of the speakers to explain that obviously these applications we heard under one discussion, and they're all happy to speak just to once to cover all of those applications.
Yeah.
We've got 2 more councillors to start. So we've got Councillor Patrick to start. The clock I think is defaulted to 3. So he's allowed 5 minutes. You'll presumably, Chair, have 2 minutes on at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nigel, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
These planning applications before committee today are retrospective applications following enforcement action, following complaints made by some of the neighbouring residents. The residents to the front of the apartments have more problems from the site with noise nuisance than the residents to the rear of the apartments. Enforcement action required because the conditions imposed in the 2017 committee decision had not been adhered to. Some of the conditions cannot be adhered to now without rebuilding or demolition, and I think I am right in saying that the neighbours are reluctantly willing to allow those unauthorised changes to take place, though it is fair to say that had the conditions imposed by this committee been implemented in full, we would not be here today and there would not have been any complaints. The neighbours remain unhappy with the changes to the operational hours in particular. It's important in all this complexity to understand that the 2017 conditions on hours of use were operational hours, that is, doors locked. The operational hours for the restaurant were conditioned as 10 AM to 10:30 PM any day of the week, with further restrictions on deliveries. Those times were not adhered to, and that led to noise nuisance and complaints from neighbours. The new times now in front of you are not the times proposed by the applicant, but times negotiated with officers. These are not the times that were consulted on, and in fact they are worse than the times that were consulted on, with your operational hours extended from 10:30 p.m. any day to 12:30 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and 1 a.m. Friday and Saturday. Far from controlling what happens at this site, the recommendation allows them to continue as they have done to breach the original committee decision. If approved, it formalises that breach and will inevitably continue to create problems for the neighbouring properties. Far from the officer has just said that, you know, he doesn't think it's going to cause problems. He already knows it causes problems, because that is why we are here today, because the neighbours have been experiencing problems with noise nuisance. I was assured that Kirklees planning was going to get tough with people who breached planning conditions, but in this case, officers are happy to overrule the original committee decision that was made to protect the amenity of the neighbouring properties. Officers described the difference as negligible. I would argue that an extension of up to 2.5 hours is significant for those living next door. Given that these times were very different from the times in the application, I suggested that this part of the application should be re-advertised, but officers did not want to do that. They have had a rethink, and a letter was sent to some residents on the 1st of July, but this not made any difference to the officer recommendation. I have to tell committee that I am disturbed by the way this planning application has been handled. One would expect a departure from the original to be handled with care, but it has been brought to my attention that our staff worked with the applicant to achieve a positive outcome to recommend them all favourably. And following my intervention to bring this to committee, officers looked at other methods to decide this application, including determination under the emergency powers. If this change of hours is to be approved, and there is little point setting any conditions, this sends a message out to other people of planning application permission to ignore it, and everything will be all right. I would ask you to refuse the application to change the operational hours for the restaurant so that the hours remain the same as determined by committee in 2017. And I would ask you to do that in the interest of the adjoining neighbours who, if this is approved, I am absolutely sure this council is going to continue to receive complaints about noise nuisance from that site. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you. We also have Councillor Paul Davis.
Okay. Thanks.
Right, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. First, let me thank the officers for extremely comprehensive report. I thought very well explained and understandable, and addresses some of the key points. Councillor Patrick refers to issues with the neighbours. I think we need to put some context. Yeah, certainly I'm aware of at least one, maybe two of the neighbours have issues, but I think Councillor Patrick would recognise that it's not the view from all of the nearby occupants of Royds Mill. In fact, as you will know, committee members, there have been quite a number of supportive messages from occupants within that area. So I think, you know, there has to be a balanced view taken on that as well. In addition, here we have a young couple who are invested greatly in our valley, who've done a fantastic job of converting an old building, a brown belt development, which has created good, sustainable jobs, and certainly are continuing to take that approach in the current crisis, looking for ways to continue with their business and to ensure that those jobs are available. I absolutely understand that economic activity is not the only determinant when we look at planning applications, but clearly it is an important one. So from my perspective as a ward councillor, certainly I believe this is a development that fits within our needs within the valley. It's of very high quality. I think the measures that have been taken in conjunction, and Councillor Patrick's quite correct, in discussion with our council officers, meets the needs of our plan requirements, and I do believe addresses the needs of many of our residents. You know, I'm in no way diminishing that there are still one or two people who are not happy with the site, and there have been one or two people who've not been happy with it from the beginning. But I believe from what's been presented, from the recommendation from the officers, that this is something that the committee should support, and that will continue to provide us with yet another very good business within the valley, helping us to sustain jobs and a viable economy, particularly, as I say, following through from COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Right, Chair, we've got Olivia Robertson, who is the applicant. So I'm just going to ring out. It will go onto mute until we connect. So just bear with us. Shouldn't be hopefully too long.
Hi, afternoon. You've got 3 minutes, and I'll set the clock going now.
Thank you.
Right.
When I last spoke to you before this committee, I had no idea of the magnitude of the project and journey I was about to undertake with Gower. Many sleepless nights and a great deal of stress and a considerable amount of apprehension. We did a restaurant, a deli, a cookery school, a hospitality business set up from scratch with no natural footfall and no town centre to fall back on. If ever there was a definition of a passion project, this was it. Now, I do remember one particular kind resident accosting me just before we began, proudly proclaiming, "This will never work, I'll see to that." Welcome to Thornbridge, I thought. Previously, the site was run down and prone to antisocial behaviour, so now in its place stands a high-class, in-demand destination restaurant, a place where our guests love to relax and socialise with family and friends. We've designed, implemented a beautiful and sympathetic building encompassing the historic and industrial heritage of the site. We run cookery classes, art installations, and offer gallery space to local artists. Our wildflower garden is an ecological haven for biodiversity, and we collaborate with local charities like River Home Connections. We are the beating heart of the local community, and we're innovative and creative in what we do. We employ over 28 permanent members of staff, offer various other part-time seasonal roles, usually to young people in and out of college and university nearby. Our ethos of sourcing local through our supply chain supports a multitude of local producers, meat, dairy, coffee, beer, to local cleaning, building, joinery and electrical services. We are newly listed in the 2020 Waitrose Good Food Guide and highly recommended in the recent Yorkshire Evening Post Olivier Awards. Our social media following has exceeded over 10,000, and we welcome and attract lots of visitors to the wonderful and vibrant Home Valley. So ask yourselves, who wouldn't want this kind of investment into their ward? Behind our considerable ongoing investment, there is and has to be a robust business strategy, sustainable and profitable, offering some element of potential growth. Without this, Devour will cease to be viable and ultimately fail. It's a very thin line between subsidy and sustainability. I've deliberately avoided until now mentioning anything about the devastating COVID outbreak.
30 seconds.
But recent reports suggest that over 300,000 hospitality jobs may be lost. Prior to COVID, these applications formed part of our ongoing investment, but now they're simply quite a must if we're to have any chance whatsoever to survive and build a sustainable future for the business. It's plain and simple truth. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about the future. I hope the committee recognises the commitment and dedication I have given to this business in the local area.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thanks.
Right. We've also got Nick Willock, who is the agent who'll be speaking also on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hiya, Nick, you've got 3 minutes and I'll set clock going now. It's all yours.
Thank you. As you'll see from the officers' reports, there is widespread support from local residents. Nevertheless, the applicants have taken the limited objection seriously, working with planning and environmental health officers to address issues raised. As the reports confirm, the development achieves good separation and a degree of physical shielding from nearby residential properties anyway. However, a noise report has been carried out which does not indicate any problems with the proposals. In addition, a number of management measures are set out as follows. Waste and bottles will not be moved or disposed of after 10 p.m. Signs requesting customers and staff to be quiet when leaving the premises after 11 p.m. are already in place inside the restaurant. Regular staff training will ensure noise control is at the forefront of everyone's minds, and this can be passed on to customers when they are leaving at night. Although the exit from the restaurant is a distance away from residential properties anyway. A taxi waiting bay will be designated and signed at the back of the restaurant to ensure vehicles wait in a position suitably distant from residential properties. Signs at the entrance will direct taxis to these waiting areas. The restaurant will arrange for deliveries to be made in reasonable daytime hours, and the outdoor seating area will not be used beyond 10:30 p.m. These measures do not suggest there is an existing problem, but merely seek to provide extra robust noise management measures going into the future to reduce the risk of noise and disturbance even further. As one of the local residents has said in support of the application, I quote, "The site has been operational for 18 months and it can be confirmed that noise levels from customers' comings and goings is no greater for residents than it was before the construction project. In terms of operational hours, these have been discussed and agreed with officers, and as recently as 2 weeks ago, the council's head of complex enforcement at Environmental Health phoned me and said she understood and fully agreed that it is appropriate to include the extra hour after closing, which would include work to comply with environmental health regulations, for example, properly wrapping and storing food and ensuring surfaces are properly and thoroughly cleaned. In terms of complaints, my understanding is that there have been a very small number of complaints from perhaps 1 or 2 individuals, and Environmental Health have not formally upheld these complaints or concluded that any actual noise problems exist. In conclusion, the aim of these proposals is ultimately to secure the sustainable long-term future of this already popular restaurant in the Home Valley, and we request that the committee throws its weight behind these 3 applications, particularly during this difficult time for the hospitality business. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, thank you, Nick. That's it, Chair.
Right, members, it's over to you. Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Chair. I've got one question and a couple of comments. First of all, my question. I'm not quite sure if the actual extension and the pergola and the outside seating area is likely to actually extend the number of covers as rather than just spreading out the existing number of covers that there are. Which would just give some sort of indication of the increased level of cars coming and going, perhaps. But my comment is that I well remember when this application originally came to us, and whilst we agreed it and we were happy to agree it, I think we were all quite, well, I certainly was quite fearful that it sounded like a fantastic business. With all with the cookery school as and the deli as well as the actual restaurant, but was really fearful that it might not actually take off. So I'm very pleased to hear that it has been success. I think it is employment that's well needed, particularly now, and also the renovation of the buildings. Now it's we can see them completed. I think are far exceed my expectations of what they could actually do with the site. So I think that's a job well done. And my final comment is just to say that I don't think that 10:30 is unreasonable, especially if all noise after that time is limited to inside the building, to clearing up, etc. So I'll just hear the response, if there is one, to my question about the covers, but I am happy to move this application or the recommendations of the officers. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think our role in the planning committee, we want to support businesses to thrive, but this is a fine balance because you've got business and residential. And what's worrying for me with this application, I think Councillor Paterson's already mentioned about the extra covers and outside, but what's really worrying to me is that previous application, they widened the car park bigger than what it should have been. They've also already retrospective. I do not like things that come back retrospective because that's very, very worrying to me. This is going to be challenging because we're in a pandemic at the moment. And I think some of the parts might be missed off this because I actually, Andrew, did a drive past, to ensure that I'd actually seen the site. And when I actually looked into the site, they also do a click and collect. Now, you've got to be careful about vehicular movement. It's all right during the day, but when it comes to evening, you've got banging doors, and when you try to contain people, they won't contain, and noise does carry. So I've got concerns about this. I also do have concerns about the times. So I'm going to reserve my judgment at the moment and come in a bit later, but I do think it is a fine balance. I want to support business. However, planning's here for a reason.
Thanks, Cathy. Donna?
Thank you, Chair. To be honest, Councillor Scott's covered a lot of my points. I've also got some concerns. My bit of clarification I would like is, there's obviously been previous complaints regarding noise, but I could imagine that over the last 8 or 9 weeks, whatever, those probably will have dropped as the restaurant is unlikely to have been open due to COVID. So I think, with the pandemic thing, that, we really probably don't know what the effect has been, or, the complaints will have dropped. Yes, they have got a click and collect service, and like you said, that is banging doors, vehicle movements, all different times. So I'm the same as Councillor Scott, to be honest. I've got some real concerns, and I'll also reserve my judgment until I hear what others have to say as well. Thank you.
Right. Thanks.
Stephen?
I've got you down, Donald. I've got Andrew, then you, Donald, and then Mohan.
Right,
so,
okay.
Andrew, Councillor Pinnock.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, as I indicated, I went and looked at the site on Monday, and without sort of realising all the background, I must admit the car park and the wildlife planting is absolutely brilliant. The smell coming from the flowers was quite phenomenal. So they've done a really good job there, and the surfacing of the car park is really in keeping with the whole area. And I have to say also that was mentioned by Neil Bearcroft earlier, the restoration of the building itself is a good thing. It has improved the appearance of the place from what I remember it when we made our first site visit several years ago. Right. It's the to be perfectly honest, the thing I'm most unhappy about is the extension of hours, because I think that we've got a bit of a hostage to fortune here. I've not, or at least I don't remember us saying you can have opening hours up to a certain point and then you can have a bit more to tidy up. Usually we are talking about opening hours saying, you know, they are until whatever time and that's it. And that includes tidying up. So I am not sure that that we ought to be extending the hours. I hear all that's been said about supporting businesses and so on, and that is clearly very important. But what my impression is that whilst, like all businesses, there is an element of struggle here, I don't think we should be saying yes, just like that. And I do think we also need an answer to Councillor Patterson's question about the total number of covers. Is that extended from the covered part of the restaurant to the outdoors? And whilst having outdoors is a good thing, if it means more people, and a lot of people, I guess, will come to this site by car or by vehicle at any rate. I think we have to be very careful, even if there is an apparent approval by a fair number of the residents of the mill building opposite. Even if there are some people who find it a nuisance, we need to do something about that. I will reserve my judgment, like other members have said. So I'm not going to, other than the point about opening hours, I will come back later. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Chair. Right, just before I start and make any comments about this, I just want to take you back, all of you, about 10 years, something like that, because there's been a source of problems down in the bottom of Luke Lane with noise issues. The apartments that are now lived in, that used to be at one time, up to about 10 or 11 years ago, it was a mill. And it had been in existence for over 150 years. It employed 75 people, and it went under them, I think it was Tilchers. There were some houses built down there in the bottom, and the first thing that happened, of course, was complaints about the noise from the mill, because when it was busy, it did work sometimes 24/6. And it got, the council, unfortunately, supported, well, unfortunately, whatever, supported the new coming houses that were built, and the mill people had to pack in, which they did. 75 people lost their jobs over that. And then somebody bought the mill, and of course, they put a lot of people in there as apartments. About 11, 12 years ago, I took one of our planning officers to look at those properties, and I was told in no uncertain terms it was in Greenbelt. There'd be no allowance for anybody to build anything in the Greenbelt. And this is another thing that annoys me. The Greenbelt is only Greenbelt, and it's only sacrosanct, whatever the council thinks it is. If it thinks it's going to get rid of it, then it does do. And this is where it's all wrong. We won't be too long before we have just about covered up every green field. But going back to the noise situation, yes, there has been complaints, a lot of complaints about noise down there. And the retrospective planning, that doesn't fare very well with me. It seems to be a normal thing nowadays. Get it built and hope that they're going to pass it. It's as simple as that. And I can go around our valley, around Owen Valley South, and see things that suddenly being built, and I've never seen any plans for them, you know. And this is the whole thing. They should be satisfied with what they were given 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was decided, 2017 or whenever, they should be well satisfied instead of retrospective building and then coming back and saying, well, you know, it's a fait accompli. Will they let us build it? We've already built it. What are they going to do about it? And this is what is happening. And I'm sorry, I can't agree with some of the people on it. I do agree with what Councillor Bellamy who is it commented about it. I do agree with that. And I agree with a certain amount of things that Andrew's come up with. We can't just keep giving in all the time. And Councillor Davis has said it's created jobs. Of course it has, but he wants to think back. If he was here at the time, it lost 75 jobs, you know, just like that. 75 people went out of work. And I wasn't happy about that. The fact that mill had been there for 150 years. So I'm going to have to do a bit of thinking about this whether I make a decision. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Donald. Mohan?
Thank you, Chair. I think I heard about the councillor, what they say. They don't want anything there. I read the report, Mr. Chair. The restaurant over there, most of the people who go there, enjoy the day out, they are local people. I think the ward council should support the local people who go there, enjoy there. This is the restaurant, they may create some jobs as well, yeah? And those storage container is mainly for the benefit of those restaurants. Mr. Chair, I don't see any objection from the local people or neighbors. It's only people who are there. They are 8 letters in support of this application. So we need to listen to the supporter as well. We should not say, oh, there are some neighbors noise or and so. With regard to Mr. Chair of opening time, I agree with some of my colleagues on here, but they say should not be extended hour. But I think we need to look into their proposing hours on Christmas and New Year Eve. I think we need to keep those hours as asked by, because these are the most festival day. People go out and enjoy late night. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohan. Matthias, do you want to come in now?
Thank you, Chair. Matthias Franklin, Head of Planning. I think I'll ask Neil and the Environmental Health Officer to respond on the detailed questions about the numbers of covers and how that relates. Because there's obviously a COVID situation, and then if we ever get back to a normal where we can have people in restaurants and outside, then there's a total number of covers. So we can answer that question. The Environmental Health Officer can come back to you on the assessment of the information we've had through the application and its response to complaints and how it's responded in detail to residents who have made complaints in the past. I think overall, members, if you take the 3 issues in front of you, the applications for the outside space, the pergola, the storage containers, and the space at the front, the building at the front, it strikes me that those aren't overly controversial to the committee, and those ones seem to be comfortable about the extent of building works, if I wrap it into that term. The issue at hand is clearly about the hours and the extension. I've been reading the report whilst members have been discussing as well, and whilst I've been listening to members, and I was conscious that in the report, it details the licence and the extent of the alcohol licence hours and how that relates to the proposed extension of hours generally. In the report, it makes reference to the alcohol licence extending to 11 o'clock, with the applicant expecting most of their customers to have left by 11:30 because of the drinking up time, the half an hour drinking up time in that document. So it strikes me that it is asking for extra hours, but the issue at hand is, have you got serious evidence that you can substantiate not supporting the hours being proposed? Because if we ended up at an appeal, the question we would ask ourselves is, what is the evidence to support a request to refuse in light of the fact that they've submitted noise reports, they've been assessed? So rather than get into where members are going to go with it, if you bring in your specialist planner and environmental health officer, Chair, I think they will be able to give some clarity to the technical issues, and that might help members arrive at a position. Hope that helped.
Thanks, Matthias. Environmental health, I think we've got somebody somewhere.
Hello, yes, Chair. My name's Alexandra Gary. I work for the Pollution and Noise Control team. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, fine, yeah.
Okay. Yes, we have looked at the noise report that the applicant has submitted, which covers the noise from the actual operation. So the plant noise, the actual noise from within the building, the noise from the pergola area, and it basically the noise report says that there's going to be no impact on the residents in the vicinity. It was a good report. We were happy with how it was put together and the conclusions that it reached. There is always going to be a potential for noise from people arriving and leaving at premises, and that is obviously a concern for environmental health. And that's why we asked for a noise report in the first instance. The noise report has gone some way to satisfy us that there's not going to be a problem. The applicants also produced a noise management plan to say how they as a business are going to control the noise. So, you know, signs asking people to be respectful and quiet at the end of the day. When they're emptying bins, when they're emptying bottle bins, that sort of thing, all things to try and control the noise and the impact on the residents. So, and we've looked at that and we're happy with that as well, that they are capable of controlling any disturbance. With regard to complaints that we've received, obviously the business has been open for 18 months. In the last 3 or 4 months, obviously they've not been operating at full capacity, so I'm discounting the fact that we've not had any complaints in the last 3 or 4 months, because you know COVID has stopped a lot of complaints about businesses for environmental health. Prior to that, we did only have one complaint from a resident of Royds Mill. That was received in February of this year, so the business had been operating for a considerable amount of time before a complaint was made to environmental health. We did a preliminary investigation of that complaint and asked the resident to keep some records for us, and contacted the company to discuss the issues. Basically, the complaint was of the premises just being open. There wasn't really any degree of how the noise was disturbing them. A lot of the records were just the fact that it was still open beyond the hours permitted in the existing planning permission. They did mention cars leaving and taxis leaving, but again, you know, it was few and far between. It wasn't, you know, an issue with really late at night or anything like that. It was just cars pulling off. They weren't doing anything. There was no complaints about customer noise. We did offer to install some monitoring equipment and do some monitoring of the situation, but that offer was declined. So we haven't been able to substantiate any nuisance from the premises, and that is the only complaint that we've received regarding the operation.
Right.
So that clarifies the position a bit more.
Right, thanks, Alexander. Andrew?
Chair, do you want me to come back about the numbers, the covers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you can, Neil, yeah.
Neil Bearcroft, case officer. So in terms of the two areas, that it would increase the amount of space that could be used for covers. No specific detail on the numbers has been provided, but the extension will provide an extra 57 square metres, which the applicant has said would be more focused on other parts of the business, such as a cookery school, small scale functions, private dining, to help diversify the business and provide an extra offer. In terms of the outside seating area, yes, that would also increase the potential for more people to come, but the vast majority of that is outside. The only covered element is at the 8x4 metre greenhouse, so it'll be subject to the weather. And that outside seating area, as we've said, is away from the residential properties. The noise report has assessed the impact on that, and that's considered to be acceptable. And in terms of the car park, that is considered to be more than large enough to accommodate those additional that additional floor space, and that's been assessed by Highways. And then just finally, I'd just point out that in terms of the comments in support, the vast majority of those have come from the mill next door as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil. Councillor Pinnett.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a simple question, and that is, what was the designation of the site before development took place? I mean, it was this site in the Greenbelt? Please, thank you.
Through you, Chair. Yes, it's in the Greenbelt, and it is now, and it was before. It's always been in the Greenbelt. It's a previously developed site in the Greenbelt, and that's how it was assessed previously. It was a wood turning business with the southern building and the northern building forming one site.
Right. Well, thank you. So we have an issue about a building in the Greenbelt, which is always a problem. I'll desist. I'll let somebody else speak. Maybe I'll come back later. Thanks, Chair.
Carol.
I just wanted to ask about the excuse me, infringements, if that's the right word, to the original planning application or the conditions in terms of the size of the car park, the nature walk, and the flue, as well as, I suppose, the hours of opening. I totally agree with comments that have been made about, we don't want people to think that they can flout any conditions that are put on a planning application and just ignore them. But my question really to the officers is, conditions or plans are never necessarily a perfect science. And in this particular case, was it found that the flue was necessary to get rid of fumes better than what was already prescribed? Was the layout of the car park not as good as it could be? And this has been an improvement. And it's already been said about the hours of opening that this extra half hour at the end of the day is to recognise that people are enjoying their experience there, shall I say, and are loath to leave. So have these infringements come about as a result of experience, as opposed to, I don't like to use the word, but maliciousness? It wasn't determined before they got the application that, oh, we'll put this in, but we're going to do what we like anyway. And just to reiterate, I don't think 10:30 is an unreasonable time to be closing. Many restaurants have that sort of hour of closure in highly built up residential areas, where I think there's definitely more chance of noise being transmitted. So I don't know if anyone could comment on the infringements of the original application.
Neil, do you want to come in now? Yeah, I've got you, Donald. Neil, do you want to come in now?
Okay, so just a few things in terms of the hours of use. Councillor Patterson's mentioned 10:30. Well, that's what's got approval at the moment, and they're applying for 11:30 Monday to Thursday and midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Just to confirm, that's what they're seeking to apply for. In terms of the flue, the premises was always going to have some form of extract ventilation system, and it was conditioned that they provide details. However, the applicant installed the flue before any details were approved, so it was done retrospectively, that element. And then I think the other elements the applicant said have come about when via the construction process. Just in terms of the green belt, the site was a brownfield site in the green belt, and its redevelopment can be acceptable in accordance with the MPPF. And also now it sets out in the local plan that you can do that. So that element was acceptable. It was in accordance with policy, and now they're applied for extensions in the green belt, which also can be acceptable, subject to the scale, the design, etc. And that's been deemed to be within the policy requirements as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil. Donna?
Stephen.
Yeah, I've got you down, Donald.
Thanks, Chair. For me with this, it's the extension of the hours, the opening hours. The other things, to be honest, I think are probably okay. Is there any way that we could actually sort of pass this but leave the opening hours as they are? I don't think extending them is going to be, you know, is ideal. I think that will cause more noise problems. I think, you know, we're not going to know because obviously of COVID and everything else. Like I said, the other bits aren't the issue with me. It's definitely the extension of hours that I think will cause a problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Donald and then Kathy.
Yeah, okay. Right, well, basically, looking at it, it is the hours that they're wanting to open, it's just purely and simply ridiculous. They agreed when the plans came forward to do what they were granted to do, and now we've got retrospective planning all over the place. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to agree to any of this retrospective planning. But more often than not, I can't do anything about it. I'm not going to make them pull it down. I can't, but I don't have to agree to retrospective planning because let's be fair, everybody's at it. So what I suggest, from my point of view, I'm not going to agree to the opening hours. That's when all the noise comes and all the cars are moving about, regardless. It's all very well people saying, oh, it's all right, it's nice. None of you people live across the road in those apartments. I don't, but I know what it must be like if they have noise at ridiculous times of the night. You don't get a quality of life, that's for sure. So I'm suggesting that, you know, the stick, we do get that opening time, and they stick to the original opening times they've got now. I mean, 11:30, that means it's going to be 12:30 before anybody's moved out, or at least 12 o'clock if they're going to have it. And then at 12 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday, you're going to be looking at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's in a very much of a residential area down there. As I've explained earlier, it was in a residential area before, and the poor beggars that had the mill, which was been working mill for 150 years, had to close down and move out because of a few problems that they had from noise. So it's not just new, isn't this noise thing down there? It's a very much of an area which is a lot of people all around, and the road infrastructure isn't very good either. Luke Lane's very narrow. And in fact, the road infrastructure around there is all cart track design around horses and carts. So yeah, I'm definitely not going to agree to the hours. And also, I would like to say, as Neil managed to say, that the extensions they're wanting, it will give them more tables. But we haven't actually been told how many. That's another thing that's a bit of a guesswork. So I'm not going to agree to the times. Sorry about that, but I can't agree to that. I'm not going to put people in jeopardy. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Donald. Kathy?
Yeah, I'll go back to what I said earlier, Chair. It's a balance between residential and business running together. I'm not favourable of the extension of hours at all. And the officer, Neil, you did mention 57 square metres of usage outside and varying use. That's a substantial amount.
It is.
And it's not talking about table covers, so we don't actually know that. So I do think it's a fine balance. I have also got issues about development in the Greenbelt as well, because I think some of our officers have missed that part where we've actually been saying about, you know, sometimes it's okay to build in the Greenbelt, sometimes it isn't, and I'm going both ways on this. I think my main issue is sustaining the same times that they've got now. I don't think they need that extended any further. And it isn't just local businesses, people that go there, the people from outside the district.
Neil, do you want to come back in on anything?
Can I come in, Chair? Can I have
yeah, Matthias, yeah.
Okay, look, I hear the very clear message from members. There is a concern about the comings and goings and the extent of activity that could happen outside, and some detail that isn't quite there. But there is also a lot of technical evidence and analysis on the operational side of the business for the extra hour that they want during the week and the hour and a half at the weekend, and how they would then do the tidy up, the bottle up, the cleaning up, the cashing up. So there is a degree of confidence in the technical analysis, but what members are quite the mood is that, or I'm suggesting the mood for members appears to be there's a concern about, we're not quite sure whether these extra hours really are going to be appropriate with those neighbours, even though we've done some analysis with the environmental health. So my suggestion to planning committee is, in this instance, there's a reasonable position that could say we'll let them have a temporary extension of hours with active monitoring, with officers doing unannounced compliance visits, and we have an out of hours planning service that can do that. And then we come back in 12 months' time to this committee with all the information. We are in a very difficult economic situation. Everybody knows that. We're trying to be helpful and flexible, but not at the expense of our residents' living conditions, because they're at home all the time. So that's my suggestion on the hours. On the issue about Greenbelt development, I want to be absolutely clear with everybody that we take very seriously any form of inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, and we will enforce any breaches of planning control there. In this case, as has been alluded to, it is an existing building. The plans that went to the strategic committee a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, for the alterations of the business buildings, they were acceptable to this committee in the Greenbelt. These alterations are within the compound of that building environment. So there isn't an extension into the green belt. There's an alteration to the old factory site, the old woodworking site, which you've already approved and which these tweak again in effect. So my view there, members, very clearly is I think there isn't a serious concern about the pergola and the building alterations, because it's within the built bit of the business. It's not gone into the wider green belt. The parking area was already identified. So I hear what members are saying, and I want to say very clearly, I think that's a compromise position to go forward on. But clearly this is for you members. If you think you know enough, we can make a decision. If you don't, I'm happy to advise you. That's my best advice, I think, in this context for this site, and because of the clear issues that the committee and the ward members have identified as well. Hope that helps, Chair, committee.
Thanks, Matthias. Councillor Pinnock.
Thanks, Chair. That what Matthias has said is actually very helpful, and I was on the verge of saying I would like to propose that for that application. What I was originally going to say, however, was couldn't we align the opening hours of the restaurant with the agreed licensing hours, so that we make sure that they are the same? I'd just like clarification on that before I commit myself to making a proposal, please.
Chair, I'll come in if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, committee, this is your decision. You weigh the information in front of you. You listen to the comments and the issues around it, and you come to your own decision on what you think is appropriate, having regard to your advice. My comment directly on that, Councillor Pinnock, is yes, you could align it very tightly to that. What you don't want to do is create a very fine balanced situation where people are leaving at 11:31, creating a breach. Is that, what's the tolerance that you want to give past that drinking up period, if any? And if you don't, that's your decision as a committee to align the two. But in simple terms, if you think that's the appropriate hour for those midweek drinkers, because they want slightly later on the Friday, Saturday anyway, then that's your decision as a committee if you think that's more appropriate. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Matthias. Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. I think we got a very good advice from Matthias, yeah, which is asking for 12-month period extended over if we accept the application. Again, Matthias had earlier said and told us, because we haven't got any evidence. If we go to appeal just only on opening hour, we haven't got any evidence to defend ourselves those hours. I think we need to consider that. So Matthias given us a good advice. We see how we go 12 months period. There will be a very good monitoring by the officer from licensed environment and others. So I think Carol already has moved to approve the application, so I second it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohan. Carol.
Stephen.
Yeah, I've got you, Donald. Carol first, and then Donald.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say yes. I got confused, I'm afraid, by the application for the pergola and the 10:30. But I am happy to accept Matthias's suggestion that we go for a period of 12 months temporary license, well, not license, agreement to open until 11:30. I think that makes that is a reasonable compromise. And also, actually thinking about it with the licensing hours as well. I mean, I can see how they've got themselves into a muddle. I mean, if you leave your table and you can go and drink at the bar for an extra half hour. So if licensing has already has given them a license until 11 o'clock, then that does make it very difficult. So I think that this is a compromise, a good compromise to suggest that temporary pending further investigation, well, not investigation, but monitoring of the situation. So I do move it, but with that recommendation from Matthias.
Donald.
Yeah, I'm not going to put the people down there under a 12-month ban on noise. It's got to be 6 months if you're going to do it, not 12 months. Let's play right now, 6 months, and if it doesn't work out, then it stays as it is. Simple as that. That's what I'm going to agree to. I'm not agreeing to anything else. I'm not going to be taking down that road and kidology, because at the end of the day, we shall be picking up the tabs when the problems are down there. Don't forget that. We'll be picking them up on Valley South. You won't be there, will you, Andrew? Simple as that. I'm just, putting things in perspective now. And that's what I feel. If you want to, I will agree to 6 months, but I will not agree to 12 months. That's a long time, it's 12 months. Putting them through 12 months, if it's bad, of hell, and that's not good. They are our residents, and they do put us in to look after their best interest. not altogether the best interest of everybody, but the best. And don't forget that a lot of those people that go to Devour or wherever it is come from out of town. They don't all come out of Oathworth and only. That's for sure. And that's a fact. So let's get things straight now. I'll go for 6 months, and if you don't agree to that, then I'm voting against it. Simple as that. Thank you.
Right, I've got Donna, Andrew, and Kathy, and then if we can't, Moan, I want to try and get some progress made. Don't forget we've got 3 votes to do, so you can put some specific rules, regulations down on any specific application. Donna.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still really cautious about agreeing to any extension in any hours. I know it's been suggested that we do it on a short period, you know, it's monitored on a temporary. The thing is, the situation we are in at this moment in time, who knows what's going to happen in the next few months. We could end up back on lockdown. We could end up with all sorts of things happening. So I don't honestly see how that even by giving them a temporary that we can monitor it. So to be honest, I really do not want to give any extra hours at all. I think they should stay as they are for now, and just, you know, maybe they could come back in another, maybe, you know, the restaurant can come back in another 12 months and ask again for, you know, extending if they've then proved that they haven't had any noise complaints in the permitted hours that they've got at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Donna. Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. At the risk of appearing pedantic, as somebody has said, I think it was yourself, we've got 3 votes here. Personally, I don't have a problem with application 1 and 2. It's the 3rd one where we, and I would like to do this now, I would like to move that we grant them a 12-month permission, as Matthias has outlined. It's got to be 12 months because we don't know what the next few months are going to give us in terms of freedom of movement and so on. And I think 6 months would not be a fair reflection of what's actually going to happen. I mean, I hear what Councillor Firth has said, but under the circumstances, I don't see that we can make a fair judgment as to what that's going to happen. Can we take it that Councillor Patterson has moved approval? That's of the applications 1 and 2. I would like to move a 12-month temporary permission for application 3.
Yeah. Kathy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm going to agree with Councillor Bellamy here. I think that I'd be happy for him to stay at the hours they've got and then come back at a later date, you know, providing there's been no problem. So I think, you know, so that's where I'm at, Chair. So most of the things have been said, so.
Moan.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I think my point has been covered with Andrew. Yeah, 12 months. Yeah. Thank you.
I have to say that I would agree with Kathy on this one, and Donna Bellamy. It should leave it as it is, because if we are come to a lockdown, those hours aren't going to be included anyway. So we might as well let's see what happens after everything gets back to normal, if ever it does. Simple as that.
Right. At this juncture, then we'll have a first vote. I can see that you're all itching to get going. So this is for item 7. This is the temporary storage containers and greenhouse and pergola. It's being moved by Councillor Pattison, seconded by Councillor Sokol. So I'll hand over to Richard so that you can cast your vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'll just go around and ask for your vote, please. So we'll start with Councillor Bellamy.
If this isn't the hours, is it? So
no, this is for the this is item 7.
Right, 4.
Councillor Firth,
4.
Councillor Patterson,
4.
Councillor Pinnock,
4.
Councillor Scott,
4.
Councillor Sokol,
4.
and Councillor Hall.
And 4.
Okay, so that's unanimous, Chair. So item 7 has been approved.
So now we go to item 8. This is the erection of the extension to the former mill building. Carol, are you moving this again?
Yeah. Yes, I'll move it, Chair.
Seconder?
Yeah, second.
Thank you. So that's seconded by Councillor Sokol.
Okay, so so this is for item 8.
Item 8.
So again, I'll go round. Councillor Bellamy.
Richard, sorry to butt in.
Yep.
With the hours of use, because we were controlling the hours of use on this one as well, and so it sort of links to the previous one. Is it that members want to agree the same hours as they do with the other one?
Yeah.
It will be, yeah. Looks like it's at item 9, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thanks.
So this is for item 8.
Well,
the extension to the former mill building. This is what we're voting on now.
Can I just ask a question? Have these buildings already been put up?
No.
There's nothing being put up then? It's
No.
not retrospective, this?
No.
No, the first one was, I think.
Right, well, okay, well, I'm not voting for this one then.
Okay, right.
Right.
So this is obviously moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Sokol. So Councillor Bellamy.
What's the hours on this? Because now I'm getting a bit confused. Thank you.
Not hours. No hours.
No.
Hours are on next one, item 9.
Right, well, it's just that, you know, the office has just mentioned hours. So I'm really confused now. What are the actual opening hours on this? I think Councillor Scott's the same. So can we just have some clarification? What are the hours for this bit?
Is this
And why do they want
just the erection of the extension? No hours are tied into it. Is that right, Neil?
Under the conditions, I think there are showing hours.
So with this one, it's part of the main. It's an extension to the restaurant, so you'd get additional space to come and dine.
Yeah.
So we're going to add the same hours as what's on the main restaurant, just to tie it all together so it's clear.
Yeah.
So at the moment in the report, the hours are the same hours as what is in the item number 9, where they wanted to extend them.
No.
You've obviously had that debate about the hours, about whether that's acceptable or not. So it's just ensuring that the conditions on these accord with item number 9. That's what we're saying, isn't it? Whatever you determine on item number 9, whether it's to refuse, temporary, or approve, then they would follow the same hours. That's
Neil, can I ask you a question? Why haven't they mentioned the extra covers that will be put? Generally, when you get a plan, they say how many covers they're going to have there. There's no mention of it. Why?
I've got Donna and then Kathy. Donna?
I just, maybe we should have done item 9 then first and got the hours sorted, because this to me now is getting absolutely confusing. We could be passing stuff and passing extra hours, and I don't think we absolutely know that. And I would suspect, I think that's exactly what Kathy's going to say.
Well, extra hours, no.
We've worked wrong way.
Kathy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I really think we should have took item 9 first, and because it does impact on. Sorry, was it item 9? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
item 9. Yeah.
Yeah, item 9 first, because item 8 is it does have the hours. So
Ties in with
what
it.
I want is I'm supporting the application if it's on the existing hours, not the new variation, the existing. That's all. So I think there's a problem here now.
I'll agree with that. In fact, I move that, Cather.
Yeah.
So if I could just clarify then, in terms, so if we go to item 9, we have already had for item 9 a move by Councillor Patterson and seconded by Councillor Sokol for this one to be subject to a temporary agreement, and what they proposed was a 12-month temporary period. So if we're going to,
can I move the other suggestion then, that the hours stay exactly the same?
what I was going to say, Councillor Bellamy, is if we go to this vote, if it goes ahead, obviously it goes ahead. If it falls, there's another discussion, and also we'll have to put another motion on the table then.
Yes.
I'm going to say, as far as I'm concerned, I was going to go with the hours what they've already got, not any extra hours. I think there's been some good points made about, we're talking about outside areas being built that we don't know. We don't know what the hell's going to happen. So me personally, I will put forward that we keep the hours the same, and I'll move that.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second it.
Okay.
Right.
Can we just get clarification from Sandra as to which vote we should be taking first, please?
Sandra, are you there?
Sorry, I forgot to mute. I think the first one, because it was made and seconded, and then if it falls, to go to the second one.
Okay, so and I agree with that. So what we're actually suggesting then is that the first vote will be for the temporary agreement, 12-month temporary agreement. If that then falls, we'll go to the second vote, which will be for existing hours.
So it's the temporary what you're being voting on now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Councillor Bellamy.
Now I'm confused. What we're voting for?
This is item 9, where the proposal is to go with a temporary agreement of extending the hours for 12 months.
No,
all right, against.
Okay, Councillor Firth.
Against.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
Against.
Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Okay, so that's 3 for that proposal, 4 against, so that has actually fallen. So we're now going to a second vote, and this is now to go with item 9 again, but this time keeping hours as they are, existing hours. And I think that was moved by yourself, Councillor Hall.
Yeah.
And I think Councillor Scott, you seconded that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll start with Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Firth.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
Abstain.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Okay, so item 9 has been approved, subject to keeping hours, the existing hours. So do you want to move to item 8?
So we'll go back now to item 8.
Right, so, and I'm right then in saying that if we approve this, the hours as shown in the report will be revised so that they will fall in line with what we just voted for, so it'll be existing hours.
Existing hours, so that reverts back as was item 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right. So, and I've got down that was moved by Councillor Patterson and seconded by Councillor Sokol. So you still happy for us to go ahead on that basis? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Firth.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Pinnock.
4.
Councillor Scott.
4.
Councillor Sokol.
4.
Councillor Hall.
4.
Okay, so that is unanimous. So item 8 has been approved, subject to maintaining existing hours. Thank you, Chair.
Just before we go on to the next item, it's something that I haven't mentioned now. I do know that quite a few of you share the same view as me, and that's about retrospective planning applications. I really do wish people had learned. All they have to do is pick up a phone and talk to council, and we've got officers there that'll help them, and it saves all this aggravation, time and money. Simple. Item 10, this is Home Bridge, and it's Home Faith Vineyard, and it's, I've got Emma down here.
I think Neil's taking
Neil doing it. Right.
You're on mute at the minute, Neil.
Can everyone see the screen okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this application seeks permission to vary conditions 5 regarding the hours of use, 6 in respect to a noise management plan on a previous planning permission for an extension and rebuilding of fire damaged building at Home Faith Vineyard. The application seeks to increase the hours for customers until midnight, Thursday to Sunday, by 1 additional hour, and also to include bank holidays. Condition 6 provides constraints of the noise management plan, which also includes the hours, and that's why that condition is also included in the application. The application is brought to committee due to the significant level of representations received. As set out in the update, it is brought to members' attention that the applicant has appealed against the non-determination of the application, and the decision now rests with the planning inspectorate. Therefore, the decision of committee today is a recommendation which will be referred to the planning inspectorate. So this is the site. It's off Woodhouse Lane, and as I said earlier, it forms part of the Home Faith Vineyard, where there's a building on site with a car park to the north. This is an aerial photograph of the site. The building is here, the car parking area is here, and this is the access that leads up from the Home Bridge area. The closest residential properties are to the northeast, 50 metres to the right, and to the southeast at a distance of around 100 metres. This aerial photograph also shows the rural character of the area and the roads. I'll now just go through some photographs of the site. So the photograph on the left shows the building itself, part of the car park is also shown. The photograph on the right shows the access leading up into the car park. The nearby residential property is shown opposite. So that's the access to a nearby residential property. And this is just another photograph showing the point of access. So members have a full and detailed report in front of them, and the main issue with this application is the impact of the additional hour would have on residential amenity. A noise survey and supporting statement have been provided by the applicant, which has been considered by environmental health and planning officers. In summary, the submitted information sets out that a number of functions have been held beyond the hours approved under a temporary events notice without complaint, and that the additional hour would not be detrimental to residential amenity. The applicant has also highlighted the economic benefit the business brings to the local area, and the additional hour would further support this. This information has been assessed by environmental health, who have concerns with the provision of an additional hour of operation and have confirmed that they have received 9 complaints in the last 6 months. Concerns relate to the potential for noise disturbance outside when customers are leaving and from vehicle movements, both of which are difficult to control. This concern is further highlighted due to the site's quiet rural location. With regard to economic benefit, it is considered that the existing business operates successfully already. The additional hour is considered to be inconsequential in terms of employment and tourism generation, though it is recognised that a more flexibility may prove more attractive to customers. In conclusion, it is considered that the additional hour of operation on Thursday to Sundays and bank holidays would result in an unacceptable reduction in the quality of life and well-being of neighbouring residential occupants due to noise and activities that would be generated from the premises and the outside areas over this extended period of time. This would be contrary to policies LP 24 and 52 of the local plan and chapters 12 and 16 of the MPPF. The application is therefore recommended for refusal, and the decision of which will be made by the inspectorate as set out in the committee update. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil.
Yes, got a number of speakers, Chair. First one we're trying to get through to is Christine Smith, who objects to the plan.
Afternoon,
Right,
Christine.
okay.
You've got 3 minutes starting from now.
We are objecting to the vineyard opening late on any night and obtaining a temporary licence. Every time there is a function, the music continues after 11 p.m. and the building is never vacated by 11:30. We hear noise in our house well after 12 p.m. We have endured fireworks powerful enough to shake the house. The farm dog's distressed as sheep lame while trying to run from the noise. If drinking hours are extended, then more alcohol will be consumed and will exacerbate the problems we endure. The vineyard is supposed to close all doors and windows, and no amplified music is to be heard coming from the building. Clause 2.21, 2.2.2 and 2.23 of the Noise Management Plan. The test by MZA Acoustic was on a Monday night and determined that noise level was a minimal. It should be done on a weekend when events take place. The vineyard wants to run nightclub hours in a rural farming area. The owners have a record of not adhering to planning regulations. The operating hours are already ignored and surpassed and would get worse. We are subject to noise from vehicular movements, sounding horns, people talking loudly. Cars and taxis that cannot get into the car park come down our lane into the farmyard to turn round. Taxis have come down, sounding their horns, expecting us to come out. Access to a business property is a problem, with visitors trying to park down our lane and in the farmyard. On an evening, they park in front of our gates, blocking the entry into the farm. Contrary to what the owners state, there is not enough car parking spaces off the road. Cars are parked down the road and causing access issues up and down Woodhouse Lane, limiting our ability to run our farm business. The owners agreed to have someone on car park duty. This never happened. The owners spend a great deal of time on the East Coast and cannot oversee the problems encountered. The claim of an overflow car park is incorrect. Parking spaces are for vineyard apartments. Woodhouse Lane is an unlit, steep, winding, narrow lane. Cars parked on this lane make it hazardous. The infrastructure rural area is not suitable for a nightclub venue. It was built and approved as a vinery and tasting venue in farming country. Despite approaches to the owners, they show no willingness to listen to any concerns. We now have to resort to calling the police to enable us to carry out a duty of care for the parents and animals. Both planning and environmental health are involved with issues arising on a constant basis. The building was built as a tractor shed initially. Now it is a function room and restaurant. The production of wine is now not what the business is about. Our duty of care to our livestock has come under pressure through loss of access with a cattle trailer on occasion. The emotional strain of the issues on our family and business have and are continuing to have a detrimental effect.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you very much, Christine.
All right.
Okay, we've now going to try and get hold of Brian Duckett, who also objects to the plan.
Afternoon, Brian. You've got 3 minutes starting now.
I wish to object to the change of opening hours on the following grounds. The business was to be a wine tasting and vining business. They want to change it now to a nightclub venue. The current hours of 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. have already been regularly exceeded and result in unbearable noise disturbance, access issue, illegal parking, art shed to farm animals and farm businesses. Reported to Kirklees Environmental Health Team. Why was the noise survey submitted on this application undertaken on a Monday night when the venues do not take place? No events are held on a Monday night. What is wrong with the weekend monitoring? They continually disregard their current restrictions. Parking is not allowed on the road, nor should block access ways. Evidence shows parking on the road, blocking of access points. This would surely become worst case scenario if extension was allowed. Fireworks have been let off without warning, resulting in upset farm animals in the area. Car moving, doors slamming, verbal conversations after hours. Laughter, music cannot be controlled on the hillside location. Noise from talking, laughing, music from venue and the doors open will be unbearable. The valley acts as a tunnel for noise, dependent on the direction of the wind. Current restrictions state that no outside noise shall be heard. Windows, doors will be shut. This is impossible promise, especially on a warm summer evening. Guests will want to step outside. Doors open, live music, laughter, disco music, all things associated with a nightclub venue. 20% of guests attending will most likely to smoke. That means the people be outside the venue most of the time. Noise following the closure of the event will go on to at least an hour after the guests are leaving, chatting, waiting for taxis, making this disturbance till at least 2 p.m. We are extremely concerned that this should be granted. Rural villages will be changed irrevocably, damaged. It is a farming on the border of national
30
park,
seconds.
while the vantage during the daytime will no doubt be an asset to tourists. This is what it was supposed to be. Allowing them to turn it into a nighttime, early hours venue should not be allowed at any cost. Rural road network is not suitable for transport for many of these people to this event. Airpin Bend, of course, coaches, minibuses problems, vehicles get stuck.
Can you wrap up, Brian, please?
Access to the village. The council are well aware of the constant breach of permissions retaining this record.
You wrap up, Brian, please. That's 3 minutes.
Yeah, extension allowed will only disturb local community enjoyment. Residents in the evening will create issues and shit. We have 159.
That's it, Brian. Thank you. You've had your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. We have a Stuart Vendy who also objects to the plans.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Stuart. You've got 3 minutes. I'll start the clock now.
Thank you very much for hearing me. I'm a town planning consultant. My purpose in speaking to you this afternoon is simply to amplify and explain some of my objection points. I have 3 points. The first one, firstly, that I fully support the reason for refusal within the officer report on grounds of amenity. The other scheduled speakers will make these points as well, so I won't rehearse them here. But I think simply the number of objections on this point should lead you to the officer's recommendation and the situation which is obviously occurring on site. Admittedly at unsociable hours in the evening, so a simple pass-by on a Monday afternoon isn't going to be able to fully replicate the situation that's going on there. On that first point, I just wanted to highlight what your officer has mentioned at paragraph 10.2 of her report with regard to the economic development implications of the proposal. The additional time is seen to be insignificant. So we're dealing primarily here with an amenity issue and the harm that results. The second point I wanted to make was just to highlight what's a sad forensic history of the site in terms of planning and enforcement. Paras 4.2 to 4.6 of the report set this out. But unfortunately, it doesn't mention the more recent noise complaints that have been occurring since the officer has been since the use has been operating outside of its approved hours. In a verbal update, your officer has highlighted the point that is made at 10.7 and 9 of the report, that there have been 9 complaints in the past 6 months alone. And they all link to events where they've been operating outside of the current planning conditions, unfortunately. My last point I wanted to make was a technical point, I'm afraid. 6.3, there's no reference to Greenbelt policy. This site is obviously within the Greenbelt. I note that the original approval was deemed to be inappropriate development, but very special circumstances applied. The use and the buildings themselves haven't changed. This is still an inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, and the proposal currently before you concerns the operation of that development. There is a change in how the building is likely to be used as a result of this proposal. And whilst not a change of use from a planning perspective, it does go to the operation of the development on the site. Para 146.
Could you wrap up, please, Stuart?
Yeah, makes clear that the use of the building is inappropriate depending on openness and on the purposes of the Greenbelt, but the officer doesn't appear to have engaged on that point. For that reason, I would ask you to add a Greenbelt reason for refusal to the officer's recommendation if you are so minded to follow your officer's recommendation and put that case to the Planning Inspectorate. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. Right, so I'm going to try and now call Ben Cooper, who also objects to the plans.
Afternoon,
Right.
Ben. I'll start clock now. You have 3 minutes starting from now.
Right. I wish to object, please, on the following grounds. The first one is the area is a rural farming greenbelt area, and local residents, domestic animals, as well as farming animals, would naturally, in the middle of the night, be very disturbed by loud music, cars and traffic and car doors slamming, and people making a lot of noise as they leave events. The disturbance of this sort would be disorientating to their natural existence. Indeed, animals owned by adjoining farmers, such as sheep, have had to be moved away from the winery because of the impact of bright lights and noise late at night on them. It re-emphasises that it's a rural greenbelt farming community and not a place to locate a late night function club. Indeed, local pubs have to close at 11 p.m, so why shouldn't this apply to the winery? My second point is that many local residents have matters that require them to rise early each day for work and children to go to school, and to be woken by loud music and people during the night is not fair on the local residents. Indeed, further down at Woodhouse Lane are people who work in the NHS, one who trains nurses, who've worked, those nurses working on the front line against the COVID virus in recent times. There are also 2 primary school teachers, and where a bad night will impact directly on their school children. In particular, the immediate residents in the vineyard are Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are in their 80s and have lived there all their lives, who suffer from ill health, and Mr. and Mrs. Duckett, who are retired, and they will be particularly affected by noise and traffic every night of the week. Additionally, because of the height of the vineyard, it is likely that noise will resonate across the valley, the residents of Homebridge and Hinchcliffe Mill. My third point, the roads leading to the winery are narrow, single-track, unlit country roads immediately below the vineyard in a sharp double bend, which is seen on the plan that's been shown to you. In good conditions, it's difficult to navigate. In the middle of the night,
30 seconds.
It could be a potential accident black spot. Added to the danger is the fact that the occupants of cars, taxis and other vehicles will be in an excited state of mind and will have consumed alcohol, thereby creating a cocktail for disaster to occur. Additionally, there are no pavements leading up to or down from the winery. The activities of
you
the
wrap
winery,
up, please.
Right. Well, my last point is that they've flouted on many occasions the planning permissions already, and the application shows that they have on at least 6 occasions gone beyond their permitted time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. We've next got us ring through to Susan Jones, who also objects to the plans.
Okay, thanks.
Afternoon, Susan. You've 3 minutes. I'll start the clock now.
Hi, I live, thank you for this permission, this opportunity to talk. I live just a few hundred yards away from the vineyard, and I have to say that I'm quite exasperated that we're here yet again with the vineyard continuing to push the boundaries of what is actually acceptable in this rural area. Since the original planning permission went in, which was meant to be for enhancing an agricultural business, the vineyard has continuously pushed the boundaries, so that now what we actually have is a party venue. Hi, thanks for letting me talk at the committee. The vineyard is yet again trying to push the boundaries of what's acceptable in this rural area. There's been an incremental increase since the original planning permission, which was to enhance an agricultural business, hence the vineyard and growing of grapes and that, to what is now actually a hospitality and events business, and all which the other people have objected of it, have mentioned all the detrimental impact of that. And I'd like to suggest that if the planning applications had gone in for originally with all these extra things to extend hours to become a party venue and such like in the original planning permission many years ago, that it would not have been granted. I think despite the number of complaints, I don't know if you think they're high, the number of complaints that have been put in against this, it still had a very huge detrimental impact on the people who live locally. And the owners don't seem to engage with the public at all, those people who live locally, about this impact. In fact, I understand they don't even live locally, so they can't really understand what the impact is. I would also like to suggest that, you don't give this extra hour of licence to this venue, and let's actually look at, given the many violations that the establishment has had over the years, of removing some of the current licence that they have, because even if you don't increase by an extra hour, those detrimental things that are happening now about the parties, the noise, the increased rubbish that's outside, the increased footfall, the increased traffic are going to continue. And it's not just a case of not increasing by an hour, it's seriously a case of having a look at the whole planning that this venue is allowed to do, and to stop it from being able to carry on with its current operation.
30 seconds.
Thanks, that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Right,
Okay. Thank you very much, Susan. Right, Chair, we've next got the 2 ward members. So we've got Councillor Patrick.
Hi, Nigel. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah, fine.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
Nigel.
Right. this application, this site has got a lot of parallels with the last one that you considered. I think you probably spotted that. But it's been a very long journey to get to this point. Originally in 2009, I supported this business, but at the outset, it was a very different business to what it is now. And since then, planning conditions, they weren't adhered to, and the neighbours have been plagued by noise nuisance and on-road parking obstructions. Had enforcement action been taken early on, we would never have got this far. It's the same story. It's exactly the same story as the last one, only the last one is a young business, and this one has been going for 10 years. Like the last one, these people want the hours they have been operating legitimising. And we have, I think there's over 90 objections to this application. People are simply fed up and they want action taken. I just want to make a technical point, if I may, on noise nuisance and complaint recording. In the last application, the Environmental Health Officer suggested there'd only been one complaint. That is simply not true. She may only have one complaint recorded in her files, but what is happening is people, members of the public, complain to the planning office. Some of those complaints are not recorded and they're not shared with the Environmental Health Service. So there are a lot more complaints out there than the council is recording. And I know this because I've looked into it with our new officer, the Complex Enforcement Officer, Kim Walker, and she will tell you that some complaints have not been recorded and other complaints have not been shared. So it's important to understand that when people say they've been complaining a lot, they have. When the Environmental Health Services say they've only got one complaint, it might not reflect what's actually happening. And that is true not just of these planning applications, but that will affect all your wards. And I'm glad as a cabinet member on the planning committee now, because I think this needs to be taken up and sorted out, because the planning committee does need to have the right information in front of them to make the correct decisions. So I just want to finish off by saying I hope you refuse this planning application. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nigel.
Okay, so Councillor Davis.
Yeah. Councillor Davis, it's all yours now. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Patrick, actually. This application does certainly have parallels with the last application that we discussed. And one of the things I'd certainly emphasise would be that what we need to do is very clearly look at the evidence presented and take an evidence-based view, and as much as possible, obviously, a balanced view. And I'm sure the committee do that anyway. So let's look at the business that we're referring to. We are referring to a business that's well regarded within the valley as being a responsible and good employer. This is not a sort of employer that just comes and disappears. They've certainly set their roots down in the valley, again, to create a sustainable business going forward. It's also true to say, and I think officers have recognised this, that the business have put in place extensive measures to meet the needs of the noise management plan that was agreed with the council. So logs are kept in terms of different functions, numbers of guests, times, decibel readings, and name of car park marshals, etc. And certainly looking at the evidence that officers presented, it would certainly seem to me that there's no question that the noise issue within the internal building itself is well controlled, but also accept, as the officers say, that there is still a question mark on the external noise. In other words, the car park and people leaving at later hours in the evening. And I think that's something that certainly needs more work. Clearly at this point, there doesn't seem to be anything that we can look at that gives us a solid view on that. It's also true to say, I think, that this business has cooperated well with the council. I don't pick up anything from officers' reports or any discussions that they've been obstructive or not willing to work with the council, and certainly they've, as we can see, they've compromised on the hours that they put forward. I know there's a concern about the development of the site, and that's been raised by some of the speakers today. But I think we do have to realise, that businesses that stand still, basically, they die. It's not I mentioned COVID-19, but previous to that, you really do have to look at your business portfolio and decide how you're going to create something which is sustainable. And one of the key areas in hospitality, as most people will know, is around functions and hospitals. So, hospitality and weddings. So a key issue for this business is that diversification going forward. And there are many other examples of businesses, not just in this valley, but elsewhere that are looking at similar things. Of course, we shouldn't ignore residents, and I absolutely support the view that we should do everything to mitigate impact of any business on our residents. It's absolutely the case that should be what we put in place. But I do think we have to take a balanced approach to this as well. And yes, we've spoken of many people in opposition, but there are many people who support this business as well and have registered their comments. And, I understand the strong feelings, and that's absolutely shown by the flyers that were sent around people's homes to ask them to register their disapproval of this application. And people are perfectly entitled to do that. So there are very strong emotional feelings around this whole affair. But I think for us, as within the council and certainly as a planning committee, what we should be doing is taking this balanced and evidenced view. And certainly the parish council looked at this application within their planning committee and sent through their approval to Kirklees. And as we know, the parish council is the first tier of local government and generally is much closer to the community than even the district council.
30 seconds.
And that in itself, I think, is a very strong indicator that this committee should take account of. So I support this application in terms of what's been put forward. But what I would say, if there are still doubts, then in the same way as the last application, what we should look at is a 12-month temporary period whereby we can gather some real evidence around this issue of the external noise. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We have got a number of people who have also registered in support of the application. The first one on the list is Judith Ford, who I'll ring now.
Thank you.
Hi, Judith. You've got 3 minutes. I'll start the clock for you now.
Thank you. So as a local resident of Homebridge, I fully support the application made by Homefirth Vineyard because it is just a 1 hour extension, 4 nights per week. The Vineyard is a major employer within Homefirth and the staff are respected, treated fairly and very much valued by the Shevling family. This reflects on the commitment of the staff, the length of time some members have been in employment there, and these are not casual or short-term employee contracts. It is a tourist attraction within our area, bringing visitors to our beautiful area for days and weekends from across the world. The influx of restaurant and function goers boosts our local economy. The area once renowned for after the summer wine, well, these days have passed now, and we must look forward and support new attractions such as the Vineyard. The unique Vineyard experience, the dining tours, weddings and functions can't be replicated anywhere in the north of England. It is an accessible venue
staff are well trained to meet customers' needs, and I would say that is both within the restaurant and within the car park. There is a flat access to it with no steps, and therefore a disabled toilet with lots and lots of space, and having a family member in a wheelchair, that's a very rare commodity within the Home First area. Local residents with children, I'm a local resident, I live in Homebridge and I've got children at the nearby school at the bottom of the hill. I have never been affected by traffic, by noise, etc. The vineyard has been sympathetically built, blending with the landscape. In fact, what I would say is the farm above the vineyard is much more visible to me on a night time where I live due to the light pollution. It is a greenbelt site, or it certainly is in the surrounding countryside, but they appreciate that by having installed the wind turbine and the apartments are eco-built. I was surprised on the 11th of February that through my door I was angered to get a poisonous, malicious, anonymous piece of propaganda that was posted through mine and my neighbours' doors, and it was
30
quite
seconds
clear
left.
to incite panic amongst local residents. There was no contact number, no name on that sheet, and no email, and it was clearly there to incite panic amongst Homebridge residents, some of which are elderly. I want to finish by recognising the amount of charitable work that the Shevlins do to support the local causes, and that's purchasing sports kits for local schools, for Home First Junior and Infant School, art materials for that school.
Wrap up, please.
Yeah, so basically, I do support it, and I think we should be supporting a very good local business that's bringing economic prosper to our area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judith. Right, Chair, I'm going to try and get hold of Lindsay Broughton, who is also in support.
I'll set you off now. You've got 3 minutes. I'll set the clock going.
Okay, thank you. Right, my husband and I have lived in Home First for nearly 20 years, and we feel that we share the views of the majority of our friends and neighbours, that Home First Vineyard is an asset to our community. The Vineyard has been involved in countless charity events. They support local schools and the local community. They employ local people and use local produce and provide a valued and elegant venue for small-scale meetings and larger celebrations such as weddings. Could I add that we've actually been up to a birthday party there over the last couple of years, and I know there have been concerns about sound, but actually from the outside of the building, we couldn't hear any sound at all. We didn't even think we were in the right place at the time. Sadly, though, there seems to be a minority of people who seem to have an unfounded grievance with them, and they set about creating a campaign of misinformation. I don't particularly like being manipulated, and I was really angered when a leaflet came through our door suggesting that Home First Vineyard were applying to be a nightclub. Obviously, I contacted the Vineyard and I found out that that was far from the case, but I understand that there may be quite a lot of complaints if people believe that. We live across the valley from the Vineyard. We have never heard any excess noise. We've not heard any noise at all from there. I know people have been speaking about fireworks. We heard fireworks once last year. They didn't come from the Vineyard, they came from the farm above. And we have, however, heard loud music playing from other venues within our community that have been permitted late licenses and have live music at least once a month. Also, the same venues are actually surrounded by houses, unlike Home First Vineyard. The implication from the objectors appears to suggest a business that encourages noisy and antisocial behaviour. This couldn't be further from the truth. Home First Vineyard is a highly respectable and responsible part of our community. We don't believe that an extension for only 1 hour for 4 days a week will cause any disruption whatsoever to the local community, especially as there are no properties in their immediate area that would be affected. The only 2 buildings that are within 500 metres of the vineyard are more than adequately screened and protected from any noise generated from guests who are arriving or leaving the venue. And as I said before, the soundproofing of the venue is such that from the outside, even when music is playing, it's silent. You know, with the suggestion that we might be hearing noise from people coming and going, I find that highly unlikely, given the distance that the other properties are from the vineyard itself.
You wrap up, please.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Right, Chair, we've also had some written comments that have been submitted by Tom Whitehouse, who's written in support of the application. And if I can invite my colleague, Andrea Woodside, just to read those out, please.
Thank you. Yeah, the submission is from Tom Whitehouse, who is the general manager of the vineyard. Since commencing my employment in November 2018, I have been on site at the vineyard for all 23 weddings we have hosted since that date. Myself and the team work incredibly hard to make sure that weddings are successful and run smoothly with as little impact on the local community as possible. These are the measures we have in place to help us achieve that. During weddings at the vineyard, we close to the general public. This obviously means a loss of revenue for the company, but we feel it's a necessary step to avoid irresponsible parking at the vineyard and surrounding highways. A member of staff monitors the car park as guests arrive and ensures they do not park on the public highway. In the evening, sound levels are monitored closely. All external doors in the function room are kept closed, and we stand on the public highway with a decibel meter. All sound readings are recorded. After the event is finished, we call taxis for the guests and encourage them to wait in the bar area until their taxi arrives, rather than them standing outside in the car park. We call taxis from our personal phones, so the taxi company calls us to let us know when they arrive, so that they are not sat in the car park. Any guests staying in our accommodation are offered lifts in our personal vehicles to ensure that they are monitored and noise levels are kept at a minimum. During my time at the vineyard, I've had several conversations with neighbours to address their concerns. These concerns have been civil and kept professional. I also gave Christine Smith my personal mobile number and told her that if there were any issues, she should call me. During weddings, the neighbours often congregate opposite the entrance to the vineyard car park. This is often very intimidating to our guests, but mostly to the staff. On one occasion, a guest arrived late to a wedding and parked on the public highway. Instead of calling me to get the car moved, the neighbours instantly called the police. The police arrived quickly, but by this time I'd been alerted to the problem, found the owner of the vehicle and had moved the car into the car park. In my opinion, wedding receptions at the vineyard bring a lot of revenue into the community, not just to the vineyard. I recommend a lot of local accommodation for guests as our on-site apartments are often fully booked, plus a lot of wedding parties arrive in the area the night before and enjoy an evening out in Home Firth. I've been employed in many wedding venues throughout my career, both in rural and built-up areas, and I've never experienced such fierce opposition to a venue that brings extra revenue into the local community. It is my opinion that rather than the local community having issues with the vineyard as a wedding venue, their complaints stem from their strained relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Shevling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. I've also got Ian Shevlin, who is one of the applicants. I'll contact him now.
Right, Ian, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Okay, so we've been in business now for 13 years and we've run our personal and professional lives alongside some very difficult neighbours who said they had £100,000 to shut us down many moons ago due to personal differences. This is a vendetta, we believe, is at the heart of all the complaints. After a complaint was raised, the environmental department visited Mr. Duckett, who spoke earlier, and sat with him in his bedroom no noise could be heard, and that was reported. All the complaints have been made when the neighbours stand at the end of the drive. Nothing can be seen or heard from any of their houses, especially Christine Smith, who lives down the village in Homebridge on the main road. Licensing have been called out. On both occasions, the venue was closed. Again, this is not in the report because it does not support a refusal. I'd also like to clarify a few comments on the planning report, if I could. Reference 10.2, LP 10. The additional is for 1 hour, not for 2 hours, as described in the report. And we'd just like to, contrary to the planner's opinion, it will generate more income and increase employment due to there being busier with weddings. Couples want to get married at the vineyard. They want the events until 11 a.m., not 12 a.m., not 11 p.m. This has been shown by using the 10s. Without this later license, it puts us at a disadvantage with local establishments who are all within earshot of us, such as the Huntsman, who obviously hold weddings, the Pickle Pheasant, who hold numerous live events outside, which we obviously cannot do, Coddy's Fun Barn, just up the corner, and Whitegate Leisure. They're all hold weddings themselves. I'd also like to put out 10.7. There's no complaints been recorded over the last 11 years until the application to extend our hours went to KMC in September 2019. And it says in there that there's 4 complaints of fireworks. On the planning report, it says the police were called because of the firework display. This firework display was not us at our establishment. It was a wedding venue at another site behind us. We also have the video footage to actually show this. It was another wedding. And we sent this to the Planning and Environmental Departments, but this has not been mentioned in the report. In the objection on our neighbours state how harmful the fireworks are, their livestock, so why does
30 seconds
insist on having let fireworks off himself every year for New Year's Eve? We do not allow fireworks at the vineyard. The surrounding establishments all have fireworks, we do not. 10.10, the planners are justifying the refusal on the level of objection comments, which were fueled by misleading and libelous flyer. None of these complaints were ever over a real event or they're only perceived events in the future. None of these objections relate to the 12 a.m. finish, 2 a.m. finish. Okay, well, thanks very much for your time, and I'm hoping you can support us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Now I've got going to get through to Rebecca Shevlin, who's the also the applicant.
Hi, Rebecca, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Good afternoon and thank you, Chair. We only have 2 neighbours who are 100 metres away as the crow flies. Neither neighbour can actually see us from their domestic dwelling. Neither of these neighbours are amicable with us and haven't been since we got the business. We have never operated out of our licensing hours. I would like to focus on the positives of the business. Councillor Vineyard employs up to 30 people, all local, aged from 16 to 66. From trainees to skills management, who have been with us for many years. We receive 40,000 litres a year and we make award-winning wine. This application is to extend our premises licence from 11 p.m. till 12 a.m. That's just 1 hour, 4 nights a week, to enable us to provide pre-booked events only, many of which are weddings, wanting the extra hour to share with families. We found that couples do not want to finish at 11 p.m. and if we put in potential customers or booking with us. Every establishment around us had a licence until at least 12 p.m. and the use of temporary event notices. In September 2019, we had advised by licenses to apply to extend our alcohol licence as we were using up all our pens. We applied for variation of hours under the guidance of the licence department. In October, a flyer was distributed by a man fitting our neighbour's description and identified by the local shop owner around Homebridge saying that we were applying to be a nightclub until 2 a.m. 7 nights a week. It created panic and distress and many of the local people who are older. The objections came flooding in, as you would expect. These flyers went around the area on 2 separate occasions. This is not in the planning report. None of these people had complained previously because any events at Homestead Vineyard, they'd only complained about future events and how it might cause noise and traffic. The reality is that we've been doing weddings for 18 months without any complaints. 44 emails of support went through us. 7 of these weddings were till midnight and 18 till 1 a.m. We've executed 25 events, 15 of them under temporary event notices. without any complaints prior to the variation of hours application going in. As soon as the application became public, the neighbours or local councillor wants every department within the council complained about noise and road traffic. None of these claims have been substantiated. The police were called out because the car blocked the end of the overgrown drive. Before the police had arrived, our general manager had identified the problem and had the vehicle moved. Our neighbours would rather call the police than ring our general manager or even politely ask at reception for it to be moved. What we do have is a robust travel and noise management plan that all our staff
30 seconds.
And adhere to all information is recorded several times throughout the evening, which record decibel levels. We had a professional noise report commissioner which stated that the later opening time would not be detrimental and would improve participation of guests. This whole report is referred in the planning report, but the outcome not published, but it did not support refusal. Highways have no objections, the fire and police have no objections, the parish council in support. Further departments of our environmental were efficient prematurely in October 2019, as they stated on the transcript from the Freedom of Information Act, before they reviewed any information, done a site visit, seen the sound insulated buildings or reviewed our management plans. The decision was to appease the neighbours and the pressure from the local council.
That's 3 minutes. You've had your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Right, final person who's ready to speak is a David Story, who's an agent and who will be speaking on behalf of the applicants.
Afternoon, David. You've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you, Chair, members. Given comments made by some speakers earlier, I just want to remind members that the buildings and use of the site have the benefit of planning permission. That is not the issue before you today. This application is to amend 2 conditions of the planning permission. Home Firth Vineyard is a very well-run and respected business in the Home Valley, operating on site since 2009, attracting visitors to the area who spend elsewhere and boost the local economy. As a wedding venue, it's very popular, but it's finding that the current hours of use requiring closure at 11 p.m. are proving restrictive in attracting new customers, when other nearby alternative venues are able to offer extended hours. To remain competitive, we lodged an application to vary the hours of the condition. After negotiations with officers, the application was modified and now seeks to extend the approved hours by just 1 hour on Thursday to Sundays and bank holidays. We've lodged an appeal against non-determination due to an indication that officers were no longer supporting the application. We don't consider that the report before you is balanced. Greater weight appears to be given to assumptions rather than facts. By way of example, some 25 events have taken place beyond the approved hours through the Council's temporary events notice process and permitted in the approved noise management plan. 7 were until midnight and 18 until 1 a.m. No complaints were made about these because they didn't cause any problems. That's a fact. 25 events is a significant number to draw conclusions from. The report refers to them but gives them little or no weight in consideration. Instead, the report refers to 9 complaints in the last 6 months, 4 of which related to fireworks that were not associated with the vineyard. None of the complaints have been substantiated. Paragraph 10.10 of the report refers to a number of complaints received since 2017, but goes on to say that none of them have been substantiated. That's a fact. It also goes on to conclude that the level of representation on the application validates concern. Representations received have been somewhat misguided, as you've heard, by a flyer that was circulated around the area saying a nightclub was being created. Given this, we believe that undue weight is being given to assumptions rather than facts. We believe that an extra hour on limited days would not cause a problem here. The use of the site is very well managed, with systems and processes in place to protect residential amenity. The nearest residential properties beyond the applicant's home at Woodhouse Farm are between 50 and 100 metres away. Notwithstanding the appeal against non-determination and the officer's recommendation to refuse, it's clearly open for you as members of the committee to take a different view based upon what you've heard and what you've seen. And it's possible that you could conclude that you would have approved this application had we not appealed against non-determination. You've obviously seen comments,
David, please.
Comments against.
I would hope that you take on board what we're saying and reach your decision appropriately. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, David.
Okay, thank you, David.
Right.
That's it, Chair.
Oof. Members, who wants to start the ball rolling? Matthias?
Appreciate it. Yeah, only very briefly. Just just to be clear, for the committee today, you're not making you aren't able to make a decision on the application because the application has been appealed. You're making a resolution that you would have either granted planning permission or accepted the recommendation and refused the application. So I just want to be very clear that the comments today from committee will determine the extent of the appeal that we are now being asked to fight as an appeal has been lodged against the lack of a determination on the application. So it's just to be clear that you've got a recommended reason for refusal that would what we would put forward at the appeal, and that would be the council's case, and we wouldn't raise other issues. But if you come in with other issues today, they could be part of that appeal, but obviously they need to be relevant to the planning application in front of you and what's actually being applied for. Hope that helps to clarify.
Yeah. Andrew Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm obviously the first one to stick his neck out. I went and looked at this site. And the trouble with site visits during the day, this was on Monday, is that you, and particularly this application, which is to alter the hours at night time, you don't somehow get an appreciation of that. Which is a bit unfortunate, of course. I mean, it's a wonderful site, I have to say, with extraordinary views over the valley. But the roads are exceedingly narrow and winding, both below the site and above it. So you know, the site comes with problems anyway, but the complicating factor seems to me to be that we've got a number of people who've been prepared to come and speak against the application, and a number of people who've been prepared to come and speak for it. And I won't say never the twain shall meet, but that's what at times it sounded like. And I mean, it is a bit worrying actually that evidence produced by Councillor Patrick relating to complaints that weren't somehow properly dealt with. But I'm in two minds about this. I mean, I accept what the officers are saying about they would recommend refusal. The same arguments come up with this one as we've exercised with the previous applications, and that is the ability of a local business, which evidence has been produced to show produces good economic benefits for the area. The ability of that business to continue to provide economic benefits for the area. And to be perfectly honest, I have, as I say, I am uncertain as to which way to go, bearing in mind that we can't make a decision on this, that we have to then make a recommendation to the planning inspector. So I will perhaps wait and hear what the members have to say about this. But I suppose I am kind of inclined to come down in favour of it, but let's see what the rest of you have to say.
Thanks, Andrew. Mohan?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as a member of the Huddersfield Planning Committee, I visited this site twice. First in year 2016, then 2017. Yeah, but that time we just agreed that time in the second meeting, year 2017, with those hours as well. Even it was because it was good business in the community and the home park area. We wanted to see that progressing on there because the building was first gutted with fire. Yeah. So that time, even some members were not happy with the hours we permitted that up to 11 o'clock. They say it might be a bit too late because it might be nuisance to the neighboring and the narrow effect on the narrow single track road going up. I'm really concerned about the road on the no pavement on either side. Yeah. So I'm still a bit concerned. I don't want to see the community divided on this application. Yeah. You've seen that quite few people are against, who are worried about the nuisance from there and worried about the road blocking by parked car on top end, and the people who are worried about, or they might lose the business in the area. I like Andrew, I'm two-minded, honestly, yeah, but we have heard from Matthias, we have to make the decision either way, either officer recommendation to refuse or to grant application, which I'm not sure about that. Extended hour up to midnight, it might go up to 1 o'clock, something like that. Yeah. So my mind was actually to defer this application, go back to the officer, go back to the applicant to renegotiate some kind of acceptable opening hour board, as because the applicant had appealed to the inspector of state, yeah, for their determination. So I don't know where I stand this time. Thank you.
Right. All that's needed from us is a recommendation, and it is purely on hours. It's not about whether it's a place to hold events or what roads are like. It's just purely about hours, is this. Kathy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it's good to listen to the residents in the local area and also the side of the business and their point of view, because it's hard about that balance of getting it right. On balance, I'm supporting the officer's recommendations here. If this had been in front of me as a full application, I would have said the existing hours as we did with the previous. So I fully support the officer's recommendations here. And there was one thing I did know when they mentioned about the car parking. Residents mentioned about them parking outside the houses, but there was parking on the premises. But it was stated that somebody did mention that was to be used for their guests that were stopping, and they didn't appear to be using that. So yeah, I'm supporting the opposite recommendations. So I'll move that, Chair.
Thanks, Kathy. Donna?
Thank you, Chair. I'll second that as well. I know this area really, really well. In fact, my family live in quite close vicinity to the area. And in fact, my parents also have a business reasonably close. There has been a lot of problems. The roads, yeah, are narrow. you just end up with a lot of parked cars. There has been noise and noise later on. It travels across the valley. It seems to be a theme, this, with wedding venues. I don't know why that they seem to do things without permissions to start with. Got one in my own ward that quite happily does the same sort of things. So yeah, I'll second officer's recommendation, and thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Carol?
Sorry, I didn't realise it was my turn. Yeah, I'm in two minds about this as well. Particularly sort of bearing in mind the discussions that we've just had in the earlier one as well. But if this is just about hours, and that's the only thing we've got to take into consideration, what we're talking about is 4 hours a week, and over the weekend, not Thursday to Sunday, which doesn't seem to me to be an excessive ask in terms of increase of number of hours. I mean, I think there are possibly other problems, as has been said, about the narrowness of the roads, because I too remember the previous applications, and one of the worrying aspects of this is in terms of what surrounded the previous applications was this division within the community, and there were obviously two sides then, which resulted in some very unpleasant behaviour. And it seems to me again that there may be that this distribution of this leaflet, that division in the community is still there. But if we're just talking about purely on hours, 4 hours, when some of the people will be staying on site as well, down at the lower accommodation in the accommodation that they've got down there, I think I am minded to not accept the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Carol. So far, it's been moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Bellamy, to accept officer's recommendation. Donald, do you want to come in?
I do. Yeah. But yeah. Well, basically, I was one of the people in the early days that did fully support this with the Shevlins. It was a damn good idea, and they were going to go have grapes and all this business. It was going to be a vineyard, and it has brought a lot of people in. Unfortunately, it has brought a lot of bad feelings, because the roads up there are about the width of a horse and cart. They are very, very narrow. And of course, the car park is not a large car park. And if they are busy, and I'm sure the Shevlins would agree with me on this, they do park it. Photographs have been taken of cars parked in the road, which blocks off people wanting to do their duty, with farmers moving tractors and trailers about. They can't get down. And the farmer next door has had problems. There's been noise problems. I've spent hours up there with the Shevlins, checking out on the noise, playing music, listening to it. You know, we did actually get it down to when we all agreed it was fine, and that's an end to it. But the extra hours, well, you know, Carol says that, you know, what's 4 hours? Well, 4 hours is a lot of time when you've got a lot of noise going on and people going home and all this business, you know. So I'm going to go along with Kathy and probably, I don't know, Andrew, Donna, to leave things as they are, to be honest. See how it goes. Leave things as they are. I hope they do. I mean, I've supported them all the way down the line, don't get me wrong, but leave things as they are. Don't rock the boat.
Right, members. So this has been moved and seconded to accept officer's recommendation.
Do you want to just check? So I don't. Andrew Pinnock's wanting to speak, I think, before.
Andrew, do you want to come back in before we vote?
Yes, I was going to just check that this is now subject to planning inspectorate.
Yeah.
Is it possible that the planning inspectorate could decide? I know that's through non-determination, but could the planning inspector decide that the application should be granted?
Matthias.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. So at the appeal, the inspector will listen to the arguments for extending the hours made by the applicants and supporters. The inspector will listen to the arguments against extending the hours made by objectors and possibly this council, depending on whether you as a committee decide to fight the appeal on the grounds that officers have recommended. If you say no, then we wouldn't contest the appeal, and the appeal would go to an inspector who would look at the evidence for and against and form their own opinion. So yes, an inspector can approve the extended hours that the applicants have asked for, and equally can refuse it.
Right. Sorry, Chair. Can I in that case second Councillor Patterson's proposal to accept? Sorry. Do you see what I mean?
No.
to pass on that we wish to approve it. I think that's what Carol said.
That is what I said, yeah.
Right. So, Carol, Andrew, you want to go against officer's recommendation?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. It was put forward first that we accept officer's recommendation by Councillor Scott and Councillor Bellamy, so take a vote on that first.
Okay.
So this is to accept officer's recommendation to refuse the application.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So I'll just go around and confirm the vote then, please. So we've got Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Firth. Councillor Firth.
For. It's muted. So.
Okay.
For.
Thank you.
For.
Thank you.
Twice now.
Yeah, you can only have one, I'm afraid. Councillor Patterson.
Against.
Councillor Pinnett.
Against.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have voted for officer recommendation, 2 have against, so officer recommendation is approved.
Chair, just very quickly, I know you're going to close, just very quickly, just for the audience and for members, the council will now prepare an appeal defence to resist the hours as requested by the applicant, and our case will be based on the reason for refusal that we have suggested. We won't be making any other arguments at the appeal. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thanks, Matthias.
Yeah.
At this juncture, do you want to take a 5-minute break?
Well, a bit longer than that. Yeah.
6 minutes then.
Oh, you are
generous. I'm going to go for half an hour.
7.
Can we leave it like that? Can we leave it?
I'll go now.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
10.
All right,
10 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, welcome back everybody. Now then, we go to Kirkburton. I don't know whether it's Naya that's doing it or Neil again, or...
It's Neil again, Chair.
Right, Neil, all yours.
Right, okay. Right, okay, thank you, Chair. This application is for the erection of a two-storey and single-storey rear extensions at 11 Woodside Lodge in Kirkburton. The application is brought to committee at the request of Councillor Armour, and there have been 5 representations received in support and 6 against. I draw members. So the update, which sets out some additional information which has been received. So this is the site. It's outlined in red with additional area in blue. This is an aerial photograph showing the site in red. The site's located within the green belt, and it's a collection of dwellings in an estate, all of which are detached. The extension will be located on the rear of number 11 and will project 4 metres and be 2-storey adjacent to number 15. So that's on the top side here. And then it would be 2-storey and single-storey, so 3 metres at first floor level, 4 metres at ground floor level, adjacent to number 9. These are the elevations of the proposal. The extension would have a twin gable design, which will be set down from the ridge. The extension will be constructed from natural stone to match the existing dwelling. The principle of development is considered to be acceptable for the reasons set out in the committee report, and it is not considered that it would relate to a disproportionate addition to the host property and would not harm the openness of the green belt. Turning to residential amenity, this is the view from number 9. And the extension will project 4 metres at ground floor and 3 metres at first floor in this area. The extension is set off the boundary of the existing dwelling, and due to the orientation of the properties, there would be limited impact on overshadowing and loss of light. Officers are satisfied that there would be no detrimental harm to residential amenity in this regard in relation to number 9. This is a section which the applicant has provided, which shows the original scheme has been reduced down and the context in relation to number 9, which is in a grey or a black, and then the host property is in red, in this blue section being the extension. Turning to the impact on number 15, the extension will project 4 metres from the ground floor and first floor. However, the extension will be set off the boundary with number 15 as shown in this photograph, which reduces the impact on residential amenity. There would be no concern in relation to overlooking on this property. This is again another extension section, showing number 15 black and then the extension in blue. In terms of wider visual amenity, it is noted that majority of properties in the local area have single-storey extensions to the rear. However, 2-storey extensions are evident. This is a picture which shows number 100 Stores Hall Lane with a 2-storey extension, which is read in the context of the site being further along here, and this is the 2-storey extension that I'm referring to. The design and scale of the extension is considered to be acceptable and is set down from the ridge of the host dwelling to ensure that it is subservient. It is situated within a large garden area to the rear of the site and would not result in harm to the street scene or the character of the wider local area. There are no concerns in relation to parking provision at the site or highway safety issues. In conclusion, the proposed development is considered to be acceptable and would not result in a harmful impact on neighbouring properties or visual amenity, and is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Chair. We do have some people who registered to speak. Firstly, we've actually got some written comments submitted by Councillor Armour, which I think my colleague Andrea Woodside will just read out to the committee.
Thanks, Richard. Councillor Armour submitted the following statement. I have no personal view on the merits or otherwise of this application. However, I do feel very strongly that it is important that controversial applications are decided in public rather than made in private. For this reason, I have supported the request of my resident that this matter be referred to committee. My resident feels very strongly that this application does not satisfy a list of criteria which the resident has supplied to me and which I forwarded on to the chair. Some of these criteria are technical in nature and I am not qualified to comment upon them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. Right, I'm just going to try and now get hold of Sue Heptonstall, who objects to the application.
I'm sorry, I couldn't. Thank you.
Afternoon, Sue. You've got 3 minutes starting from now.
I should first like to say that the core elements of our initial arguments against this proposal are irrefutable and valid, and are succinctly set out in the original objections, to which I respectfully draw your attention. If this application is approved, in our opinion, a precedent is being set for past and future developments to be able to extend their properties with impunity. The proposal destroys the ethos of the original design of this estate, which was to minimise the impact of each dwelling on the neighbouring property, protecting privacy and access to light, and ruins the symmetry of the rear of the estate, destroying the roof line. Variations of design are concentrated at the front of each property here. Any alterations made on this estate have been single-storey extensions to the rear, carefully designed with consideration for the neighbouring dwellings, or if double-storey have been kept to the front, where impact is minimal. We have absolutely no objection for a single-storey extension to the rear of number 11, and if necessary, a second storey above the garage at the front, which has already been done by other properties on this estate. The planning officer seems to think that because we have large gardens to the rear, the impact of the proposal will be small. This argument does not alter the fact that the proposed two-storey extension's dominating impact is on the dwellings, not the gardens. This proposed design will protrude 4 metres beyond our house, and because of its proximity, it is no exaggeration to say that it will give us a feeling of being walled in. It will seriously impair our access to light and outlook and have a considerable impact by overshadowing our house, conservatory, and immediate garden and patio. Also, it was cited by the planning officer that our other neighbour on Storeford Lane, who share the roof line with this estate, is of the same design as the application. This is not so, as they were refused planning permission for a two-storey extension that would extend beyond the roof line of Woodside Lodge Estate. Their design had to be amended so it would not extend beyond the roof line and would not dominate the neighbouring properties, as is the case with this proposed design for the extension to number 11. I thought planning regulations were in place to protect existing dwellings from inappropriate development. I can only assume that the occupants of number 11 could not have realised just how greatly their plans would affect our house. I therefore implore you to deny approval of this overpowering protrusion, overshadowing the rear of our development, and which will have a domineering and adverse effect on the immediate neighbours in particular. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to express our strong objections.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Right, next I'm going to try and get hold of Nick Willock, who is an agent, but he's actually speaking on behalf of objectors.
Hi, Nick. You've 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you. Local plan policy LP 57 says that the original building must remain the dominant element, both in terms of size and overall appearance, in order to be acceptable in the greenbelt. Single-storey extensions have been approved on the rear-facing properties, all 6 to the west, and in relation to nearby number 23, for example, officers said in their recent assessment of a single-storey rear extension, I quote, "I am satisfied that the existing dwelling would remain the dominant element due to its current size and the single-storey nature of the rear extension. The proposed development would not significantly alter the character or style of the property," close quote. The inference here, members, is that if the proposals had been 2-storey, they would presumably have been judged to detrimentally alter the character and style of the property, and it would also have been determined that the proposals would have over-dominated the host dwelling and hence represented inappropriate development in the greenbelt. The question therefore arises as to why a 2-storey extension on one property would most likely have been judged contrary to greenbelt policy, but not in this current case. Turning to residential amenity, the massing and close proximity of the extensions would appear overbearing and dominant to the occupants of number 9, that's Mrs. Heppenstall, and would considerably reduce natural light. Number 15 lies to the northwest, and therefore impacts in relation to direct sunlight will be more severe. Sunlight loss to habitable rooms would occur from first thing in the morning to midday. Policy LP24 seeks to, I quote, "minimise impact on residential amenity of future and neighbouring occupiers." In relation to this phrase, "minimise impact," there are strong feelings that these proposals should be refused. However, the immediate neighbours I represent have thought very carefully and would like to offer a compromise solution which would genuinely minimise impacts. Our clients request that this application is deferred or delegated back to officers to seek amendments in consultation with them to reduce the proposals to a lean-to single-storey extension retaining the 4-metre depth. Such a compromise would, 1, be consistent with previous council decisions on this estate, 2, allow a substantial 39 square metre extension for the benefit of the applicant, and 3, allow the proposals to respect the greenbelt and the amenities of neighbouring residents. All my clients wish for is fairness and consistency in this case compared with others, and would urge the committee to accept this compromise as a positive way forward to resolve everyone's differences. Thank you.
Cheers, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. We have one more speaker, Chair. That's Malcolm Sizer, who is speaking on behalf of the applicant. So I'll just try and get hold of him now.
Hello, Malcolm. You've got 3 minutes and it starts now.
Thank you very much, Chair. Hello, everybody. My name is Malcolm Sizer. I'm acting on behalf of Mrs. Wormold, the applicant. I note that Councillor Harman's comments were that he had no personal view. He was just supporting the objector to the extent of asking for the application to be called up to committee. This application has been prompted by the need, particularly for more bedroom accommodation, to cater for an elderly relative, as well as her and her husband's 5 children. That's the applicant's. The office position is clear that the key issue of impact on immediate neighbours at numbers 9 and 15 has been satisfactorily addressed following the submission of amended plans, reducing the size of the proposals as follows. The overall width has been reduced by 0.8 metres. The ground floor, previously proposed to project 5 metres from the main house wall, will now project only 4 metres. The first floor now projects 4 metres from the main house wall rather than 5 metres adjacent to number 15, giving an effective projection of only 2.6 metres beyond its main house wall. So far as the impact on number 9 is concerned, the projection of the closest part of the first floor extension at only 3 metres rather than 5 metres as originally proposed takes account of the fact that number 9 is set back from number 11. I understand that the case office suggested that the part of the first floor extension alongside number 9 should be reduced to 3.5 metres. It was my client's decision to reduce it by a full metre to 3 metres, clearly to the additional benefit of that neighbour. A photograph is being submitted showing the boundary fence, planting and conservatory roof behind at number 9. Clearly, the ground floor part of the proposed extension will not have any adverse impact on that neighbour. The polycarbonate roof of the conservatory at number 9 means that there will be minimal reduction of light entering it as a result of the first floor extension alongside at a reduced 3 metre projection. Also submitted is a plan showing my client's property together with its immediate neighbours. It shows that the orientation of the properties is such that proposals will have little impact on the amount of direct sunlight reaching either neighbour's property. In conclusion, my client has been willing to reduce the size of the proposal greater extent than initially discussed in a case officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Thank you, Malcolm. That's it, Chair.
Members, it's over to you.
Clear hush.
Donald.
Well, I have to say, as far as extensions go, it's rather a large extension, isn't it? You know, it's big. He's obviously got a large family. It's not easy to sort of, you know, we may be setting a precedent. Everybody might want an extension so big if we give it a go. I don't know. I have nothing wrong with it as far as it looks quite. It will look quite well, but will it fit in? Obviously, this gentleman would prefer it to go back to be sent back to officers for them to come up with some form of idea. I think probably I'll wait and see what everybody else has to say. I'll wait and see what you all think. Thank you.
Right. Donna?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do seem to have some concerns. I mean, it's been mentioned that all the others have a single-storey extension rather than two-storey. I'm just wondering if it would be possible, would perhaps the applicant even, you know, consider dropping it to a single story rather than 2 stories, which would then, you know, maybe be in keeping with the rest. I know it has been mentioned there is another one with a 2-story extension, but it does sound as if it's quite a distance away. So I'm just wondering whether, you know, it may be worth planning officers trying to renegotiate this one. I mean, you can have a bedroom on a ground floor. It doesn't necessarily have to be upstairs. So they're just my initial thoughts.
Yeah. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, Chair. It's a question really to the officers. It has been mooted that there was a refusal before to somebody else that wanted this kind of extension. And I note that this will set a precedent because it's at the rear where others have gone to the front. It's not in keeping, as far as I'm concerned, with the street scene. If we change that, we are setting a precedent. So I'm going to hold back my other concerns for now. Allow you to bring others in, Chair, if that's okay. But I do want the officer to say why and on what rationale was used to say no to somebody, and the same kind of applications now coming back. So
yeah, no problem. Carol.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at the aerial photograph actually, and it looks as if there's. Pardon?
I say it shows it up well when you look at that photograph.
Yes, it does, and it shows, I think, that all of the properties are slightly different on all of the estate, and that actually this is, I think, about the smallest property that there is there, except for perhaps number 11 next door. I'm not sure. I think there's a bit of confusion. The drawing's a bit. The front is the bit that slopes down, isn't it? It's the which slopes down to a single story, and I don't think there is much of a difference being made to the front, and they've all got that sort of long bit sticking out. I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of compromise has already been reached between the two neighbours. Really, I think they've obviously taken the views of number 11 into account. I think the other property, which has been stated as having a two-story extension, is next to the other side of number 11. No, I think that, yeah, that's the one. That's next door to number 11, isn't it? It's that number one, 9. Then number 9 rather, and then number 11. Yeah. But looking at the aerial photograph, I mean, I think it's nice when estates have, especially of this sort of era, i.e. not that old, have got some individuality, whilst being in keeping with sort of the same type of stone and same sort of roofs, etc. So I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Carol. Andrew?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think on the whole, I would agree with what Councillor Patterson has said. I sometimes think that the ability of extensions like this to cause nuisance is more apparent than real, and I think on the whole that. As has been said, compromises have already taken place in the course to getting to this point, and so I think that we may well have something that will be suitable. So I'd be quite happy to second Councillor Patterson.
Thanks, Andrew. Moan and then Matthias.
Chair, I was looking into the planning history of the relevant application granted. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 applications. 4 different houses applications have been approved for the first floor extension. And those are not too far. I'm not sure these are most of them in front or back, yeah. But every house have got an extension, so I don't think there is any different granting permission for a first floor, because as been stated that they have a large family and they want to accommodate those relatives as well. So I support Councillor Carol Patterson's proposed move.
Right. Matthias?
Sorry, I'll be very quick. Just to make the point, obviously we take every application on its own merits. You have got the application in front of you. It has been amended. Do very much listen to what residents are saying and their concerns. It has been amended. I think you're in a space where you have got some differences of design. There is a rear extension, as an example, further up the row at first floor, although a lot of them have had it at the front at first floor. So there is some variety, but in terms of impacts for this committee in this application, it's very much assess the impacts on either neighbour, then look at the design on the house and then look at the design, how it sits in the street scene, and then come to a conclusion on the application. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Matthias, any more, or do you want to go to a vote? It has been moved by Councillor Pattison, seconded by Councillor Pinnock.
Okay.
Go to a vote,
Right,
Richard.
thank you, Chair. So this is a vote to approve the officer recommendation. So if we start with Councillor Bellamy, please.
Against.
Councillor Firth.
Against.
Councillor Pattison.
Or.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 officer recommendation, 2 against. So officer recommendation is approved.
Okay. Next item, page
Chair,
95.
sorry, can I just say at this point I will have to leave.
Yeah, all right, Carol, no problem.
All right, thanks a lot. Bye.
See ya, bye.
Bye.
Have we got Nick, or is it Neil?
It's Neil again, Chair. So thank you, Chair. This is the application at Penley in Home Lane, New Mill, and it's the outline application for the erection of 3 dwellings. The application seeks to agree layout and access, and scale, appearance and landscaping are reserved. I draw members' attention to the update which sets out the impact on Penley. I'd also bring to the attention of members that comments from the Home Valley Parish Council weren't included within the published report, and the Parish Council have stated that the application should be refused on the basis of the need to stop ribbon development between our communities, thus ensuring the discrete nature of villages in the Home Valley is protected. And they've also cited the neighbourhood plan. Just in terms of the proposal itself, this is the site, an aerial of the site. It's an unallocated greenfield site that's presently or previously used for pasture. The field is located between New Mill Road to the southwest with Huddersfield Road to the northeast. Home Lane is also shown on the plan, which also carries a public right of way. To the south is a council-owned woodland, which also forms part of an area of urban green space. This image shows the front of the site from New Mill Road. The property to the left is Penley, a split-level bungalow which would be adjacent to the new units. The new dwellings would be sited in line with Penley, fronting onto New Mill Road. This is a view from Huddersfield Road, and the location of the dwellings has been shown on the photograph, along with Penley being indicated. This is the proposed layout of the dwellings, which will be 3 detached properties. Access would be via a private drive onto New Mill Road. These details have been reviewed by Highways and are considered to be acceptable. A condition to prevent any access onto Home Lane is also proposed. In terms of layout, this follows the shape established by Penley and seeks to reflect the neighbouring dwellings. Appearance and scale are reserved matters. However, this is an indicative section and shows some massing of the properties that could potentially be shown, be built on the site. It shows split level properties having either 2 or 3 stories to the rear. The site is on higher ground level to the north. However, based on separation distances being in excess of 30 metres to the nearest property, officers are satisfied that the proposal would not harm residential amenity. This is subject to satisfactory details being provided at reserve matters stage. This final image shows an indicative street scene showing Penley and the 3 properties. It suggests how the site may be developed, and the red line shows the ground level of New Mill Road. It also shows some indicative planting to the rear. The report before members details officer's full assessment of the proposal. In summary, the site's on unallocated land and the principle of residential development of the site is considered to be acceptable. Access and layout details have been assessed as complying with policy, and other material planning considerations, including trees and drainage, have been assessed and likewise determined to be acceptable. Based on the indicative details, there are considered to be no prohibitive reasons why appropriate details could not be provided at reserved matters. 8 representations have been received objecting the proposal, and these have been assessed within the report. In relation to the comments from the parish council, these have been assessed. However, the development is surrounded by other properties and is not considered to represent ribbon development. It is also considered that the layout of the development ensures that it reflects the pattern of development within the local area, and there is further urban green space to the south which allows areas of open space to be evident in the local area. Accordingly, the application is recommended for outline approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil.
Chair, we have one speaker, which is Councillor Patrick as ward member.
Right. Nigel, you have 5 minutes. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, loud and clear, Lon.
Thank you. This site is unallocated land in the local plan. It is a greenfield site. It has never been developed before. It's had sheep grazing on it for all the years I've known it. We have a good 5-year housing supply. We have sites allocated for housing in the area not yet developed, with some sites not yet approved. To my mind, there is no good reason to build on this greenfield unallocated land. There's another unallocated site down the road from here on brownfield land where the mill chimney stood and was demolished. No objections whatsoever, and yet our officers have refused that. So I know from being a councillor and going through the local plan and listening to what councillors have said over the years, that we would like to see brownfield land developed before greenfield. Yet in this case, our officers have refused 3 dwellings on a brownfield site and want to approve 3 dwellings on a greenfield site, both unallocated land. To my mind, that's not on. And the parish council, I have to agree with them in this case, it would be ribbon development. It is not surrounded by other properties. When you look at the aerial plan, on the one side of it, there's woodland, and then next to that, there's a recreation ground. If this site is developed, it will fill in all that's left between that part of Wooldale and this part of New Mill, and it is ribbon development. But I would urge you to refuse this on the basis that there is no good reason to go into greenfield unallocated land when we've got ample housing supply. We've got the 5-year housing supply that we so fought to get in the local plan, and we've got ample allocated housing land available in Home Valley South, some of which is approved, some of which is being built on, and some of which is yet to be approved. So please, I would urge you to refuse this. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel.
That's it, Chair.
Members, it's over to you. Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. Right, I actually went and looked at this site this morning, and that is it's a good example of how important site visits are, because I don't think I'd appreciated from the description how what's the word? What a contribution this site makes to the and quite apart from the fact, incidentally, that it's quite steep. If you look over the wall from the road, you're looking down quite a long way into the bottom of the valley in a fairly short distance. I do think it's ribbon development, and members will probably realise that one of the reasons why the Planning Acts were enacted after the Second World War was because a lot of ribbon development went on between the wars, and the Planning Acts were designed to stop that sort of thing. So I do actually agree with everything that Councillor Patrick said. I don't normally do this, but in this case, I'm in full agreement. My only problem now is I want to move refusal. I'm not quite sure what the grounds are, because it's fair enough. It's in a sustainable location. It's on a main road, so that's good. And the NPPF suggests that that's a good kind of site. But as Councillor Patrick points out, this is not an allocated site. It's a green. I'm not quite sure. Is it white land? It's certainly unallocated, and we should, as he says, be looking at sites A that are allocated, or B are previously developed, not sites like this. So perhaps other members will help me what the reason for refusal is, but I would like to move refusal of this application.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. I have to agree with everything that Councillor Pinnock said. I know the area, and it is, and I do think building here will just clog up the openness of that area. And yeah, I will agree that I do think it's ribbon development. Part of the all right, everybody seems to be waving at me. I mean, the thing is, I actually agree with Councillor Pinnock. Maybe some help on refusal on reasons, but I will second him on his refusal.
Right, I've got Mowan, then Donald, and then Matthias to pick your brain, Matthias. First, Mowan.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I usually never go along with Councillor Nigel Patrick every time he comes to to oppose the housing application, because we always oppose, never accept. Yeah, but on this one, honestly, I have to be accepted. You know, I think Nigel and Andrew are right to say this is a greenfield space, and there is no need for the. It's unallocated. The site is, so I think I go along with Andrew and other to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald.
Right, yeah, it is a greenfield site, and Nigel's quite right. It's had sheep grazing on there for years. And again, Andrew is quite right. One gets dizzy looking over that wall. There's such a deep drop down the other side. I can't understand anybody wanting to build in that field. And it is ribbon development because it's in a straight line. You've got next door, you've got the recreation ground, and that's a little bit of land of green between New Mill and Wooldale, really. If you build on that, you've no green fields between Ormfirth and New Mill after that. The other unallocated site, which Nigel mentioned, was up Sheffield Road, and it was a bit of scrub land, and the guy up there put in for 3 houses. Our officers refused it. I just found that quite remarkable, really, because that's one of the places that could have been built on that wouldn't have been missed. Simple as that. And everybody in that little area were quite happy for 3 houses to be plonked there, because the actual land itself is just brownfield, and it's full of weeds and God knows what. So no, I'll put my name down to refuse this, actually, and I think it's ridiculous. We're going to finish it with no greenfields in Owen Valley South at the rate we're going on at. And me coming from a long line of farmers, I don't like it. I like to see green grass, you know. Simple as that.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Sorry, I was smiling away at Donald. Right, okay, yeah, I totally agree with what Nigel says. This is ribbon development. We have got our 5-year supply already. What's worrying about this? I'm like you, Andrew. I always believe that we should have site visits, but because we're in extraordinary circumstances, the pandemic. What's worrying about this, particularly when you're looking on the aerial views online and that, it's an opportunity for urban sprawl, an expansion of settlements, so it'll just grow bigger and bigger. So I'm fully supportive of refusing and going against officers' recommendations. And I don't know if that'll start you on the journey of why we don't want it, Andrew.
Something like that.
Right.
Matthias.
I had a nip out this weekend as well, just to escape from being at home, and had a look at it. And it's nearly gives you a bloody nosebleed when you look over the wall. It's not nice at all. So, Matthias, we need some help from you.
Let me unmute myself. Okay, good. Fair conversation, good issues, fair debate. I think what you're driving at, members, is you have a concern that the loss of this open field, which contributes to the local character and distinctiveness, would be harmful to your local community in terms of visual amenity and local character and distinctiveness. That's what you're telling us by building on it. I think that's probably what you want to, or what you were thinking you were articulating as your reason for refusal, born from Councillor Patrick, reinforced by Councillor Pinnock, and reinforced across the committee spectrum. I just want to clarify a few points, not to challenge back, but just to be clear with members. Yes, we do have a 5-year housing land supply, but that includes windfall housing sites. It is not all made up from land allocated for housing. Therefore, every year, the council requires 400 dwellings to be built on land not identified in an allocation. So we just need to be clear that we do need windfall housing, which this is a windfall site because it is not designated such as urban green space or green belt. So we just want to clear that up. So that wouldn't be a part of any refusal. So, and clearly we're focusing on this application on its merits. We're not comparing apples with pears up at Sheffield Road. That's not germane to this application. So I know members weren't doing that. I just want to be clear on that. And then the very last point, just for the record, members. Yes, you can articulate a strong reason in terms of character and distinctiveness. That's fair. That's a right thing to do. And I think that's something to test through. Maybe they go to appeal, maybe they won't. But I don't think you can say in a refusal that you want brownfield first, because there is no council planning policy, because there's no national government planning policy that requires development of brownfield before greenfield. It's what we would all like to do, I'm sure, but we're planners, you're planners, we're planners, so we can't take that line. So I hope that helps maybe articulate where the committee was. So it might be that we need to have a go at writing that down, and then if that's your reason, then you vote on that. So I don't know. Should we? He says, should we have a little go at what that meant? So for my money, it would be the loss of the existing open aspect would harm the amenity of the area in terms of visual amenity and local character and distinctiveness, contrary to some of our local plan policies.
Could you get away with overdevelopment?
Well, it's outline, isn't it? It's not apply. I don't think it's got citing in there.
No,
it hasn't.
I think so. You don't necessarily want to fight an appeal on a ground that. Oh, so sorry. Layout is a consideration. So layout perhaps, but because it's not got scale in there, it's tricky. I would suggest the best thing to do is simply say that you've got an existing greenfield.
Yeah.
You think building over it with three-dimensional buildings and driveways and retaining walls will erode the open character, and it makes, on its own right, it makes a positive contribution to local character and distinctiveness. I think we can fashion that into a reason as.
I'd certainly go with that. Through you, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah. Sandra, have you got anything that you could add to that?
No.
No. Is it still there, Sandra?
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. I must remember to mute. No, I think it's all been covered in what Matthias said and what you said there. What's all been to add.
Thank you.
Chair, I couldn't see myself. No, it's ideal that. Well, we go for that.
Right.
Yeah,
so then,
let's not
members,
push our luck.
No. This has been moved to be refused. We're going against officer's recommendation. So it's been moved by Councillor Pinnock, seconded by Councillor Bellamy.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So
Richard.
I'll just clarify the votes then. So if I can start with Councillor Bellamy.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
refuse the application.
But this is for
Four, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, four, sorry.
Councillor Firth.
For refusal.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
Mohan.
Okay. He's left the meeting at the moment.
Yeah.
Councillor Hall.
For refusal.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's five of the refused. So application is refused.
Thank you. Next, page 121. This is 125 High Street, West Elm, Dewsbury. It says Josh, but I have a funny feeling it might be Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's me. Let's just share the screen. So this is the erection of a first floor extension at Park Preschool, 125 High Street in Dewsbury. It's brought to committee due to the applicant being a family member of a councillor. I draw members' attention to the update, which provides some extra detail about the application. So the application site is outlined in red. It's in the West Town area of Dewsbury to the southwest of the town centre. The host property is a two-storey stone detached building with a fenced play area and hard standing to the front. Single-storey flat roof extension to the side, and the property was converted from a public house to a preschool in 2013. I'll just run through a few photos. The photo on the left-hand side is the side/rear elevation. The extension will be going above here. This is the front elevation. That's the main part of the preschool. The extension will be going above there. This is the outside area associated with the preschool. This is looking slightly more to the side. Again, it would be going in this area above this wall. And then this is the view from the rear showing the residential properties, and the extension will be going on this area there. So the proposed extension will be located on the north-eastern side of the building on top of the existing flat roof single-storey part of the building. The extension will provide a meeting room which will be used during the day by staff members, parents and students of the preschool. Outside the hours, it will be used for interfaith meetings and educational classes, and the meeting room is this area here. Windows to the front, the side and the rear. So these are the elevations of the extension, which is here. These are the windows at the front, and that's the section to the rear. Members have a full and detailed report in front of them, and additional detail is set out in the committee update. In terms of visual amenity, the extension is considered to be of appropriate design and scale and preserves the traditional appearance of the host building and harmonises with the surrounding properties. With regard to residential amenity, it's considered the impact as acceptable. In terms of highway safety, it's considered there's sufficient parking and a restriction already exists on the number of pupils who can attend the preschool, and that would be retained. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil.
No speakers, Chair.
No speakers, members, so it's over to you.
Well, I don't see a problem. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
No.
It's no problem.
Right, you're moving that.
I'll move support.
Thanks, Donald. I'll second it. I know area pretty well, even though it's in a Dewsbury. Apparently, you have to have a passport to go in there from Edmund White, but there we go. So I'm all right in seconding it.
Out when you've been in, that's my thing, isn't it?
Kathy?
Yeah, I'm doing this just for if there's any public tuning in. This is not going to have a detrimental impact on the area. This actually application before on other things have come to committee at Heather Woolen, and I'm happy that they're retaining the same hours. The only thing I would ask for is that the material, they ensure that the material's in keeping with the building, the existing building, that they are going to use that. So I'd like officers to ensure, I think it does say it in the paperwork there, but yeah, I'm happy to support it. There's no loss of playground, parking remains the same, and it's a well-run business. So yeah, happy to support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So this has been moved by Councillor Firth, seconded by me. Richard, if we can just
we'll go through the
motions.
Yeah. Okay. So Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Firth.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
That's unanimous. So the officer recommendation is approved.
Now then, agenda item 14, page 121. This is St Paul's Road, Mayfield, and I think it might be Neil, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's still me. You can't get rid of me that quickly.
Right.
This is the last one now. So it's the erection of extensions and rear dormers and external alterations at St Paul's Road in Mayfield. It's brought to committee as the applicant works for the investment of regeneration service. The site is located to the north of Mayfield town centre in a residential area. These are some photographs of the site. On the left-hand side is the front elevation, with the extension going off to the side here and the roof changing to a gable. This is the view to the rear. This is the view across from the side, the property on the right, and then this is another view from the rear of the property. So the plans are shown on the screen now. This is the front elevation on the right-hand side that shows the silhouette of the old or the original dwelling, where they'll be putting a gabled roof on it and going out to the side. To the rear, there'd be two dormers in the roof space and also a single-storey extension. Members have a full and detailed report in front of them. The proposal is considered to have an acceptable impact in respect to design, residential amenity and highway safety. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil.
No speakers, Chair.
No speakers, members.
Right.
It's here just because it's a member of staff, so.
Yeah, Chair, I support the officer's recommendations.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Right, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Firth.
Okay, I'll go through. Right, so this is to support officer recommendation. Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Firth.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
That's unanimous. Officer recommendation is approved.
That's it, colleagues.
Hooray.
Thank you for today, and we can meet up again in 2 weeks' time and do it all over again.
Oh, I hope not. Not
Hooray.
exactly the same.
Well, yeah.
Right, thanks everybody.
We're just 10 minutes off last one. 10 to 5. We finished at 5 o'clock that one.
Oh,
We're getting better. We're doing more in a shorter period of time.
Down to 4:30 next time.
Yeah.
We'll be finishing before we start, before so long.
Yeah.
Very good.